Week with Dirt and Sprague.
I think these guys operate with a level of respect, knowing when you say things like this, it's tongue-in-cheek, but it's no different than when you joke with your boys. There's always a little truth to that joke.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app. Jump back to earlier parts of your favorite fan shows on the Odyssey app. The only way to rewind Portland's sports leader.
Big Ten Media Week with Dirt and Sprague on 1080.
Eggs, breakfast, and gold. Whoop ass.
The Fan.
All right, 6:02 in the Rose City. Time for Dirt and Sprague, Portland sports leader, 1080 The Fan. Oh, happy Friday, everybody. Schultze, how we doing? How we feeling?
Feeling good. My anniversary was last night, and
Really?
great news broke during my anniversary dinner, so feeling good this morning.
Anniversary, huh?
Yeah, 4 years. Wife and I got married during the pandemic.
Oh, you're a
so-
COVID marriage.
Well, we pushed the actual ceremony off with our families a year, but we just went to the beach and eloped.
Really?
So, yeah, we had our ceremony planned that year. We're just like, nope, we want to get married, and yeah, we're celebrating it with dinner last night.
Yeah, it's, first of all, happy anniversary. 4 years is great.
Thanks, man.
It's 2 years longer than a lot of people get through.
It's true. I think I've already beat one of my parents' marriages out of 5, so
Really?
that is an accomplishment.
I think 4 years would have beaten all my mom's marriages, to be honest with you. But
Sorry.
It's life. It's not me. 4-year anniversary. That's exciting. COVID marriages are always interesting to me. I don't really dabble much in the COVID stuff. Some people are stuck on the internet still screaming about COVID, and we're like, hey, COVID happened. We're ready to move on.
Yeah, I'm past that.
And
Need some positivity in my life.
we have 3. You would make the third person, I think, at the station that has COVID marriage.
Wow, yeah, because I thought Dirt did too, right?
Dirt is a COVID marriage. So what I've always wanted to ask people like you guys, these COVID marriages.
Yeah.
Bad timing, just you didn't know it was going to happen, right? So it's like kind of out of your control. You maybe push the ceremony. They never get like the full wedding the way that they originally saw in their minds, these misses of ours. And so I'm always kind of curious, like, is there always a constant kind of making up and trying to like make them feel better about the fact that like they got derailed by a virus?
I mean, always, just because like our plans obviously got changed at least twice, but we did end up having a really nice ceremony on the banks of, Hood River, like right at the base of the bridge there.
Was that the original plan, though? Like when you talked about the marriage, like the wedding, was that what it was going to be, or did you guys alter it a year or two down the road?
So it was going to be at that spot just in pandemic time, and we had to push it back a year. We were
Sure.
so lucky that we didn't get like bilked, out of like a $5,000 deposit.
That was also some questionable stuff going on.
Yeah, apparently so many people got taken advantage of, and that's just awful. We were lucky. We did not. We actually were just able to work with the venue, push it back literally a year to the day. So moved it to 2021, but we still decided, hey, we want to get married. We did, but my wife and I have definitely lamented. We enjoy the day, but we spent a lot of money. So no, there's no makeup because we already put money into that day, so much so that I'm still paying it off. So
My buddy had a wedding during COVID, and the church he went to, because of the distancing and the numbers stuff,
yeah,
they're like, hey, you can have X amount of people. And so I didn't make the cut. He could only have like, I think he had 3 groomsmen. He had a cousin and his brother and another cousin.
yeah.
And so I think he had 5 or 6 of us, and I was like the first friend. I was like right at that line. And he had a live stream for his wedding, and I have a photo of me at my mother-in-law's house watching his wedding on the stream link that we were given, because we couldn't go either. Like, right? Remember the time where some of us didn't care at all, and that's okay. You were a little right.
You do you,
But some of us in the moment is like, should I be near these people? Am I gonna get sick? Am I gonna get somebody else sick? Like, it was a little weird. And so there's a picture where I'm watching the link at my mother-in-law's house, and I'm lined up with the camera just perfectly. And I'm wearing like a regular T-shirt, because like, why am I gonna dress up to watch a link, right? And my wife takes a photo of me, and I'm crouched right in front of the TV. And the photo is perfect because my buddy's right here to my right, and then his bride is obviously opposite of him. and there's his brother, his cousin, and then there's a photo of me just like hunched right in the TV screen as if I'm a groomsman standing up there with him. Like it was just the perfect angle. And so like that was as close to the wedding as I could possibly get.
Such a pandemic style wedding.
It's such a pandemic wedding story to share.
I'd say that's better than the 21-year-old that I remember his birthday going viral during the pandemic. His parents turned their garage like into a club, and it was basically his parents and his sister throwing him a 21st birthday party.
That's cool though. I mean,
It is.
That was, you know,
They got him drunk, but he can't really go out and experience being
No, I
21
know.
yet.
But
you know,
if he's 21, he's gonna be 22 and 23,
Exactly.
and a lot of us go out until we're what, 27, 26,
57?
whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is, he most likely would have been okay eventually. Those were the feel-good story moments that like I cling to personally in my bubble. Was just like,
I gotcha.
all of this sucks.
Yeah.
But give me a story where like people tried to make their circumstance fun and unique and somewhat memorable in the midst of a crap storm.
Able to make your loved ones smile.
That's a cool thing to do. Like, hey, our kid's turning 21. Can't go to bars. They're shut down. Can't go to clubs. They don't exist right now. Let's just turn the garage into a bar club. And, you know, we're mom and dad, so it's never as fun getting drunk with them as it would be my friends and whatever. But, like, those were the couple things that I would cling to and try to find on the internet that would make me feel better.
Well, and maybe because, you know, weddings and different birthday celebrations, big old life events happen during that time, you can just kind of stretch it out to forever and say, hey, you know, it wasn't as good. And like you're saying, kind of this constant makeup. So, yeah, hey, my 21st happened during the pandemic. I will always be celebrating my 21st birthday.
Anything memorable other than just going dinner? Like, did you guys go do anything?
No. I mean, we're going to do stuff this weekend, but it's a Thursday night, you know, got to work today, and I worked yesterday, and
I know.
my wife had some work too. So life catches up with you, brother.
It's I wanted to go see the Deadpool movie yesterday.
Oh, Deadpool versus Wolverine.
Is that what it's called? Deadpool versus Wolverine? I
Or
couldn't remember if it's Deadpool and Wolverine or whatever.
And Wolverine.
But-
The Deadpool Wolverine movie, yes.
Yeah. The Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds joint.
Looks amazing.
It does, but this job from time to time can derail the 7 o'clock showing.
You would even attempt a 7 o'clock showing doing this early job? Wow, I'm shocked.
You
You know, you're a morning person, but like I'm pretty
Yeah.
proud of you for that.
Well, you know, people say like, "Oh, you're a morning guy." Like, yeah, I'm a morning person. I used to wake up at 5:30, not 4 a.m.
yeah.
And that 90 minutes, buddy, let me tell you, it matters a great deal.
The first 5 years, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. Then the next, then the next, then the next. You really start to feel it. That's kind of now
Yeah.
that you're getting closer to 40, just feeling as old as I am at 35 in this business, doing different shifts. I can only imagine waking up every day early. How that would make you feel.
Yeah, so like sometimes it's a little bit of a bummer in the sense of like, hey, everybody's gonna go see this movie tonight, and tomorrow's Friday. Like, most people kind of like wake up a little later than they normally do on a Friday. They might like work a little less than they would on a Friday.
Yep.
Not so much an option. Like, hey, you're solo. You and Schultz are gonna hang out tomorrow. You can't go see a 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. movie.
No, I'm too stupid. You got to make sure you prep stuff to talk about because I can only fill the air so much. I'm just kidding. No, on a 2-man show,
I could release 8 topics right now where you just rant and rave. I could get you fired up.
You could probably get me to waste a whole segment on a lot.
In the way that
It's
somebody
true.
can tickle a child, I think I can do the equivalent of that with you giving hot takes. I think I know exactly what to say to
what
get
buttons to press?
yeah, to get you to go from like calm, cool, collected Schultz to screaming into the microphone, losing your ass, turning bright red, being mad during commercial break Schultz.
Everybody at 1080 has figured me out. Dang it!
I know. Hey, you know what? You work with
love it.
people long enough, you figure out their soft spots.
Hey, no, you know what? We are past the point. You have met my representative. Now you've gotten to the true like Schultz at heart, just like I now have met all y'all because we've been together. What? I mean, I've been here almost 2 years. So
4 years. Did you have any doubts about getting to 4 years?
no,
Never any.
no. My wife and I had. I mean, we were
Because
together.
that first year, Schultze, the first year they say is always the toughest.
No, we were great our first year.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm
Honeymoon phase lasted.
honeymoon phase is. I wouldn't say it's still going, but we have enough understanding for each other. And we were together in our 20s. You know, I was an idiot, you know, at the age of 24. Like, just doing stupid stuff, not maybe like treating not just her but people the best. And like we've learned, we've grown, and I think we've understood different faults that each other has and tried to like help each other fix those and grow from those. It's just a lot of understanding. That's what a marriage takes. Understanding and a lot of forgiveness too.
You should have hopped on the mic to give Terrence Ferguson this advice.
Oh, when he was asking about some marriage stuff yesterday.
Well, he hopped on with us kind of at the back end of the media day show,
Yeah.
and we found out that he just got engaged last weekend.
Yeah, congrats to him. Young 20-some-year-olds with a bunch of money now. That's going to be some wedding for these ducks with these NIL monies.
That's
coming
what's
in.
crazy is you get that money and it kind of
Yeah.
changes. Like, hey, maybe I can buy this ring now, or hey, maybe I can have this big ass nice wedding. He's gonna go to the NFL, but
Well, and if I had a woman in my life that and I were some young stud getting a check from NIL, I guarantee, rightfully so, that woman would start to be like, "Hey, we've been together a while. You just got this check. Like, let's go, baby." So good for Terrence for getting on it.
yeah, I love that he also admitted that he had to have help planning all of that.
There's really
I'm a football guy.
there's no problem with getting help.
None at all. But it was just funny. He's like, yeah, I play football. Planning is not really my specialty.
Hey, good for him. He was able to.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming parents in his life were able to, or a bestie, or maybe a sister. I don't know what Terrence Ferguson's sibling
I saw the
situation
photo.
is,
I
but-
saw the photo after the show. I went and looked for it, and man, he got it. He looked like he proposed in a really nice area, nice field. Got some mountains in the background or some hills.
See that when you ask me, like, hey, Schultze, was your marriage something that you're constantly trying to make up? I don't feel like the proposal that I did was good enough.
Oh,
Like-
mine was awful. I easily have the worst proposal story at the fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, lay it on me, bro. We got.
Well,
a
I had
couple minutes.
originally this grandiose plan of proposing to my wife on a Christmas, like, doing the corny thing where it's the gift in front of the family.
It's
And
so cute, though.
Sure. Yeah. That's not how it happened. I instead asked her after we had took our dog on a walk at a park, in a parking lot, and I had a poop bag in my hand.
Oh wow, you went like Jim and Pam at a gas station.
Kinda, yeah, but worse.
Yeah, poop in the hand is.
I mean, me and my wife aren't like overly romantic people. Like we love each other. We tell each other, yeah, we care, and we're just not like overly romantic with words and expression. Like we just kind of live for each other, right? But like, yeah, it's pretty awful.
Did the poop get set down on the ground at least?
No, but it's always a part of the story. It's always a massive part of the story. So Terrence Ferguson did it much better than I could have ever done.
I commend you for owning it. I mean, I did it like New Year's Eve, 42 degrees out on the Tillicum Bridge.
There you go.
So, I had already had like 2 plans busted that night, and then the backup that we went to just ended up sucking. And I'm like, I am not going to ask my wife to marry me essentially in a club.
Hey, I'll make fun of the
So-
Tillicum Bridge and the fact that like we built a bridge in Portland that didn't help our traffic problem, but like it's a beautiful bridge.
It was beautiful. Yeah, I took my wife out to the center and got down on one knee and asked her to marry me there, and she. I think she kind of expected it. But like like you did. You wanted to do a Christmas proposal. I did a New Year's proposal. So kind of fun, special, same along those lines.
Much better, much better. So happy anniversary to the Schultz clan.
Appreciate you.
4 years strong. There we go. We got a lot to get to today, Jordan Schultz. A lot to talk about.
It's loaded, baby.
It is a loaded show. I'm going to need you to hold and keep your excitement for one more segment.
I will try.
I know what you want to talk about. I will allow you to. We will get to all of the dealings that happened up north late last night. I was awake for it. But we will start. This is over, how we felt. Let's start there, and then we'll get to the massive news dump that happened late last night. Dirt and Sprague, good to be with you on this Friday on The Fan.
Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
A trade. We had a trade last night. We'll get to that coming up. Dive into what it means. Was it shocking? Surprising? I think to many it was, given what we've talked about. We got a lot of football things to get into today. Sam Monson of Pro Football Focus is going to join us at 7:30 for the Daily Ticker. So we'll dive into some NFL training camp stuff with him. The narrative's going around right now with training camp up and going. The highlights are coming out. Some players are sitting. Some players are playing. We got a Caleb Williams highlight already. And so we'll talk with Sam Monson of PFF.com coming up at 7:30. We got Sprague line at 8:30. So it is 6:19. You're more than willing or ready. Fire off those Sprague line sponsors at 503-864-6326. That's the Vancouver Ford text line. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them at vancouverford.com. The Olympic ceremonies are starting today.
Yeah, 10:30 a.m. is when we get to at least our time.
10:30 our time.
Ceremony.
We already got a Snoop Dogg torch photo. Snoop Dogg in the house carrying the torch for USA.
Let's go. I hope he's got the other kind of smoke with him too.
Well, he can't do it because it's the world, but it'd be really appropriate if he could light a joint with the torch.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
in fact, I would be willing to bet he has found a way to do it.
There's a company sponsoring him to do this.
Even if it was just a hit, Snoop Dogg has found a way to use the Olympic torch and his one moment of life to carry that torch to light a joint.
Who else could say that they did that with the Olympic torch?
Right.
Only Snoop.
Right. Yeah. Well, many other athletes and people probably would, but, Snoop for sure would get away with it. Big Ten Media Day was 3 days. One day too long. How did we feel about Big Ten Media Day? I got home yesterday. I was wiped.
I bet you were, dude.
Well, those shows are just, it's hard to put into words. Those shows are just so all over the place. And it's like, hey, PJ Fleck is on. A win right now.
I'm screaming
okay.
in your ear. Yeah, different directions.
Yeah.
Just totally suddenly not ready to. Oh, okay. I got to get my questions. That must have been really tough for you.
But
bro.
Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, the new additions to the Big Ten. We had 3-day Big Ten extravaganza. How did we feel about the Big Ten and the first year with the former Pac-12 schools being involved?
I will say I was a little, I guess, nervous to kind of see how it went and to see how I would feel. But hearing from all these new coaches, hearing from all the new opponents, and just the new place, like a different vibe this year. Obviously, Oregon and Indianapolis for the first time instead of Vegas. I was actually surprised at how much I liked it, and I think maybe just. Me taking for granted as the Pac-12 died and Oregon and all these other big teams going to the Big Ten saying, that there's a lot that we're not going to get. And I didn't really think at the time of all of the new awesome shiny things that we're going to get as sports fans. I guess eventually I was going to get there, but that's what the last 3 days of Big Ten Media Day really showed me was like, oh my God, this is an awesome spot that Oregon is in, and Washington and UCLA and USC, frankly. They get to play the likes of PJ Fleck, who we had on our show yesterday. That was just, honestly, that guy alone is more entertaining than more than half of the Pac-12 coaches that I've ever heard take the podium in that old conference.
You're not wrong there. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, and there's just so much juice when you've got a guy that has overcome some of the toughest things in life as just one of the coaches of, and I'm not trying to knock Minnesota, but one of the mediocre teams in the conference.
A team we don't think about a whole lot.
No, exactly. It really opened my eyes up to all the new storylines, all the new places. I'm so excited to visit Ann Arbor when Oregon plays Michigan eventually. Like, I'm so excited to see Ohio State coming to Oregon that's going to be a regular event. Like, there's going to be things that now we were hoping to see as college fans, and I'm just stoked now that it's here, and that's kind of my main takeaway. I would say the format maybe needed to be a little different. Sure, like some days seemed a little boring.
3 days is a bit long to me. I think you can do this in 2. It'd be a longer day, but I think you could wrap it up in 2. It's funny, just the venue itself, I think, spoke to the difference, right? Of like, last year we're doing this in Vegas, and it was weird that the Pac-12 didn't have an announcement of any sort with the media rights, and they tried to say we didn't want that to be the storyline today. And it's like, well, how did you think that wasn't going to be the storylines, that you don't have a media deal? And then this year you go to Lucas Oil, and it's like, hey, we're in a huge ass stadium, downtown Indianapolis. Like, everything about it just kind of felt bigger, greater, more major of college football. Because for how many years of our lives, especially out here on the West Coast, as much as a lot of us don't like some of this realignment, we don't like that the conference that we grew up loving died. How many years of our lives watching college football have we just been shoved down our throats? It's Big Ten, SEC, Big Ten, SEC, Big Ten, SEC. And now we've got schools that are in that conference. And I thought Lanning had kind of hinted on this a couple different times. We were really unfortunate in this regard. We got Dan Lanning. I thought the conversation went fine. He was kind of being shuttled around everywhere. We got 10 minutes. Some of these guys are very calculating. So, like, I've never interviewed Dan Lanning. That was my first interview with Dan Lanning.
You did great, by the way.
Well, thank you. But, like, he goes on Pat McAfee. He knows I'm going to say the line. Because it's Pat McAfee.
He was saving it.
Yeah, and I watched it, and I'm like, yeah, I don't blame you. It's Pat McAfee. But Fleck kind of did it, too. Like, where Fleck jumped on with us, I think we were one of his first interviews of the day, and we asked him a recruiting thing, and he just like, oh, you know, And later on in the day, I saw his quote where he was just like, well, this NIL world, we're going to go from recruiting to just choosing. And I'm like, well, where was that on the show, PJ? Come on, row the boat on the damn show. But it just, my overall point is, it felt like the West Coast was finally, for the first time in a long, long time, because our conference was kind of dog crap for a while.
Yep.
It felt like the West Coast, in some ways, was kind of wrapped into the major narrative talking points and focal points of the sport in a way that we're familiar with, but not with teams being involved. And so last year we knew the Pac-12 was going to be great, even if it was its last year.
Yeah.
But Washington, Oregon, USC, and then you had like the Utahs and the Oregon States. You got some really good programs, but you only had a couple like top-tier national conversational teams. And so a little different feel this year at the major stage of the Big Ten.
Yeah, just thinking of the Pac-12 and how nationally nobody really gave them much of a chance because of their lack of teams in the college football playoff. No one ever in the Pac-12 winning, a championship under that system, I think, really hurt the conference nationally. And instead of a Pac-12 media day kind of, pedaling away in Vegas, you got Dan Lanning in Indy ready to go on the Pat McAfee show. Would that have happened, if they weren't in Indy? No, but frankly, would that have happened if it were a Pac-12 media day as compared to a Big Ten media day? Of course not. And I think when you talk about Coach Lanning and the Ducks moving to the Big Ten, I think my big takeaway, it was when he was on the podium yesterday talking about his relationship with the Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petit, and, talking about all the new teams in the Big Ten and just giving the opportunity, at least Petit was giving the opportunity to Coach Lanning to give his ideas, to kind of talk more about a collaborative approach of how the conference should be going, which is so much different than Larry Scott and George Kliavkoff handled the Pac-10 and the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And
leadership much different.
And you can say whatever you want, like they learned, but I do think it's just people. I think it's better people running, smarter people running these organizations. And you're smarter when you're more willing to take a collaborative approach. And hearing Lanning tout that on one of the biggest stages in college football, I think it speaks to volumes of where Oregon's headed in the future.
Well, the one thing I would add to that, too, is I think they're much better run. Obviously, we made a bad hire in Kliavkoff, and then, also the presidents were a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, oh my goodness. The presidents should not be making football decisions in any conference.
But in watching a lot and dealing with the media day stuff, I think my other takeaway is if USC doesn't crap the bed post Pete Carroll and they stay USC, that our conference is still alive because Oregon is trying to build to it.
Yeah.
They're certainly branding wise becoming a dominant talking point. Washington's got some history for sure. The blue blood of that conference was USC.
Yeah.
And so USC was our Ohio State, Michigan. USC is our Alabama, Georgia, or whoever you want to put into the SEC conversation. That was ours.
Yeah.
And for almost a decade, just largely became irrelevant. And if they hadn't, you damn sure could be betting everything that those TV networks would have given us the proper amount of money because like, oh, look at the West Coast. You've
Look
got
at the LA market, yeah.
Oregon has become a thing, and Washington might be coming back. And oh, there's USC. I mean, USC's the West Coast version of all of the other big traditional blue bloods that we have. The fact that they were so bad at the wrong time, I thought ultimately became kind of the death nail in the coffin. And so, like, unfortunately for us, timing was just not on our side. But in following all of it, just very interesting to see all of these new teams in that conference, especially with the way we talk about that conference with the SEC in college football. I still think it's going to be weird to watch Oregon go to Maryland one year.
Yeah, Rutgers.
And be like, hey, conference game. But unfortunately, that's the landscape. One thing to put a pin on this, because I want to get back into some college football at 7. Dan Lanning said yesterday, he said it multiple times, this is the most exciting time in college football ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about if he's right on that. So we'll get to that coming up at the top of the hour. Coming up next, we have put it off long enough. Massive trade? Question mark.
Oh, you're going to let me sound
Swinging for the fences?
Let's
Question
go!
mark. Seattle Mariners making a trade late last night. Let's talk about that. Give you the details on it coming up next. But first, Schulte with a sports update.
This is a Big Ten Media Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Annie Plumbing, Heating, and Air, serving Portland, Southwest Washington, and the Gorge. Online at AnnieHeatingandCooling.com. It's hard to stop a train. First on the Fan, the United States women faring much better than the men in their opening group play match on the pitch against Zambia, getting the 3-0 win. Next up, Germany on Sunday. The men facing off against New Zealand in group play tomorrow morning. That's at 10 a.m. on USA and Peacock. The Canadian Olympic Committee removing women's national team coach Bess Priestman after accusations of using drones to spy on opponents' practices. New Zealand complaining to the IOC's integrity unit after seeing drones flying over closed team sessions. In baseball, the Mariners making a big splash before the trade deadline, acquiring outfielder Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays for Seattle's number 12 prospect, outfielder Aiden Smith, their number 22 prospect, right-handed starting pitcher Brody Hopkins, and a player to be named later. M's hitting the road now for a 3-game set in Chicago against the White Sox tonight, trying to fight back into first place in the AL West. George Kirby and Drew Thorpe on the bump. First pitch set for 5:10 p.m. on Root Sports. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schulte at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan Merch Locker has new shirts from the fan shows and hosts you love. Get yours now. Fan.
Well, I don't always go to bed when I should, but last night it paid off for me. I was up doing some show prep, and I said, let's just check Twitter one more time real quick. Real quick, poppin'. MLB trade deadline is looming, and the news comes across the wire that the Seattle Mariners have traded and acquired for Randy Arozarena of the Tampa Bay Rays. We didn't know the details for about the first 10 to 15 minutes. It just said Seattle had acquired Randy Arozarena. Well, we ended up finding out.
I was definitely waiting to see what they gave up. That's a big deal here.
They gave up prospects Aiden Smith, an outfielder, and right-hander Brody Hopkins, as well as a player to be named later.
Who, and who?
They had that opening from releasing Ty France, of course, which we talked about. But the Seattle Mariners acquired Randy Arozarena, who, by the way, going looking at his stats because I'm not watching Tampa Bay Rays baseball.
Why not? I'm just kidding.
Not quite their year. He just for the season. I know you can go look at splits in recent games, but on the season, he is batting .211. He's got an OPB of 345, a slugging percentage of 441, or 394, excuse me. And he's got 15 dangers and 37 ribbies. The Seattle Mariners have been a bit of a topic. They're largely every report because they lose and they get hurt and they're depressed and their fans are booing. And we've talked about them quite a bit. For a team not very good, we've talked about them quite a bit. And one thing we've talked about, are they going to make a move? Most didn't think that they would.
Mm-hmm.
They did. They traded and acquired Randy Arozarena. You are quite literally rocking Mariner gear here. You are the biggest Mariner fan on the station.
Yes, sir.
Where were you when you found this out, and how did this make you feel, getting Randy Arozarena?
So I was at dinner with my wife at Oswego Grill in Wilsonville, and there's like 6 TVs in the bar area. 2 of them were on MLB Network, and I see the breaking news ticker, Mariners acquire Randy Arozarena, and I just start freaking out. Like 2 tables around us looked at me like, dude, you all right? And my wife's just like, he's a sports guy. Like, just like, no.
You were freaking out loud?
No, I was like, oh, hell yeah, let's go. Like, I literally had
I would quite literally say that's freaking out loud.
Yes, yeah, that was my reaction in the middle of a bar at a restaurant, and I was extremely happy, although very, very closely after that, feeling like I was on pins and needles waiting to see what the Mariners gave up. Literally nothing, in my opinion.
Prospects.
2 single-A prospects. The right-handed pitcher, he's a high strikeout guy. He's a starter.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hitter, apparently he hits for power. But you know what? Usually I'm a Mariners fan justifying those players on the return side of the trade, saying, 2028, look at this guy. He's going to bust off. Thank God the Mariners made this trade. I am so ecstatic that they actually did something. I know Randy Arozarena has had a down year. Thankfully, in the last 30 days, he's hitting a lot closer to 300. And not just the last 30 days, but you go the last 15 days, the last 7 days, he's basically at a near 300 clip. So it's been a consistent month and a half or so where he's actually turned it around from hitting 190 earlier this year. And I have faith because he has not been affected by the Mariners' organizational approach at the plate yet.
Yet. Keyword there, yet. Now, can we establish something here? I thought his name was Randy Arozarena. You're saying it differently than me. Am I wrong?
Now, okay, I need to go back.
Because you would be more likely right on name stuff when it comes to me. We know I'm bad at names.
I've got this in the system already.
I always thought it was Arozarena, but maybe I just don't watch enough. But that's the ALCS MVP, who's now a Mariner. So I need to know if I'm saying this incorrectly or if you're saying it incorrectly.
I'm going to have to find the clip really quickly. Joe Fisher and I on the Hot Corner already went over this even before he was acquired.
Okay.
And we found a clip of a very, very, it was a thick accented man saying it. And I am fairly sure it was Arozarena. Like, so you do put
Arozarena.
Arozarena. Yeah, like there's an Arozarena and an Arozarena, but you're saying it either in a Cuban accent or in an American accent.
Well, but I'm not Cuban. I don't know if I should do the Cuban accent thing. I'm not swag. I don't always want to eagerly jump into the accent thing.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, we're going to hear it probably said 6 different ways
However
over the next week.
It's said.
Yeah.
So you're all in. You think he is going to become what he largely has been for his career. This is just, for whatever reason, I don't know enough. This is a pretty big down year for him from an average perspective, at least. You think he has figured this out?
I mean, I don't think that he's figured this out, but frankly, I don't care. It's another option.
It's a move, right?
Yeah, it's a move.
Yes.
It's something that the Mariners will be able to throw out there that's different than they've had before. Now, I do question, because people are talking about, maybe Jerry DiPoto, Scott Service having some, hints at job preservation here. I do question the move being made now. I wonder why this wasn't made during the offseason. I'm very sick of hearing about how the philosophy that this organization has is just better than spending money overall. We know that that's bullshit now. Like, we are literally seeing them, in my opinion, kind of backs against the wall and having to make these moves. Otherwise, they are going to lose their jobs. So I'm happy that they're being made, but I am frustrated because I do feel like it's a little bit of preservation coming from Jerry DiPoto, the president and former general manager. I am so excited, though, because I think this isn't the only move. If they're making this move, they are. We've been hearing rumors. MLB Network's John Heyman's been putting this out on Twitter for days that the Mariners have been in conversations with the Blue Jays about Vladdy Guerrero Jr.
Yeah.
This gives me faith that those conversations are actually happening and it's not just hearsay.
Why does that make you feel that way? Just because you're like, they finally made a move, so that means they're instantly going to continue to be aggressive?
Yeah,
or was this just the move, and maybe we thought it Vlad Jr., but it's a Rosarena?
Well, I mean, I've said it this entire season. Trade whoever you have to trade. Trade all your top prospects to get whoever you need.
Who cares
in here.
about prospects? I'm so tired of baseball operating in the world of like, well, I don't know, man. That guy in high A ball is, somebody who could. It's like, okay, all right. Well,
no, the prospects the Mariners should be caring about are their 5 young starting pitchers
I
that
agree.
form the best rotation in baseball.
I tend to agree with that.
And I've said the cheapest rotation in baseball. Take advantage of your 2-3 year window that you've got. Go acquire competent bats. Use those pieces that you have in the minors. Thankfully, in this Randy Arozarena trade, they didn't have to use really any. So they've got Cole Emerson still. They've got Tyler Locklear at first if they want to move on from him, include him in the Vladdy Guerrero Jr. trade. But this hopefully is one of 2 or 3 moves, because I said it earlier this week, the Mariners need like 3 bats, not just one. This solves a hole in the outfield. This solves a problem, but they still, A, they need to fix their organizational approach at the plate, but B, they still need to acquire 2 more players, because you can't keep throwing Mitch Haniger out there batting 206 and Mitch Garver batting 172.
I'm going to go watch a highlight or a couple highlights of a Rosarena now during the break, because I want to hear how the broadcasters are saying his name in Tampa Bay. This thing is throwing me through a loop. When you say his name, I'm always like mentally pivoting to a different player. But to your earlier point, you and Joe Fish looked this up. I also have another point on what you're bringing up with Vlad Jr. that I want to talk about on the other side. We'll get to some college football dealings. Is this the most exciting time ever in college football? Dan Lanning thinks it is. I want to talk about that coming up at the top of the hour. Dirt and Sprague. It is 6:43 on the Fan.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
On 1080 The Fan.
Was Dan Lanning right or wrong about this being the most exciting time in college football? We'll get to that at the top of the hour. I looked up 7 highlights. 7. So different, not just Rays people, like Yankees, Rays, Red Sox.
Everybody's saying it.
Everybody is saying a Rosarena. So they're saying it how I'm saying
Rosarena, okay.
Rosarena, but you also, again, might technically be right.
Well, okay, so that, like I was saying, I think the Cuban way is like a Rosarena, and then the American way is a Rosarena.
Stretch
or
that
Reina,
Enya out there,
Yeah.
Arena.
I mean, I think there's an Enya in there if I look at the spelling of his name, but I am not an expert on the Spanish alphabet nor how to pronounce his name.
Well, this is uncharted territory for me. I had my life doing this radio show. I haven't really hopped on here to talk about the Mariners winning a trade, and boy, you go through it. The Athletic seems to think they got an A+ in this deal. They needed a bat, they needed offense, they needed life. I mean, after that Angels game, they were quite literally being booed by an entire stadium because of how bad and inept they've been. Scott Service has looked like a guy that's maybe polishing a resume because he has no idea what the future holds. Jerry Dipoto is hiding. And so it's just been like a really down time for the Mariners as they were the fastest team to blow a 10-game divisional lead.
Did you see the picture of Jerry Dipoto on Twitter from the front office booth during that Angels game? Just
hands over his face.
Eyes between, his fingers. Yeah, it was embarrassing even for Jerry.
I think the hardest thing of baseball that we don't give enough credit or leeway into conversation on is just like at some point, like fire the manager. What is Scott supposed to do? What is Service supposed to do with these guys at the plate?
Well, I actually have a little bit of a combat to that argument.
Take more pitches, swing and hit the ball. Like at some point, baseball's kind of baseball, and I don't know. We've debated before. I've talked about this with Dirt of just like which coach is less relevant to a team in game. Is it manager or is it NBA coach? How much of it is roster set versus like what the guy can actually do in a game? Now you can certainly suggest that that's ridiculous, but my point is like it's not like Scott Service is sitting there just not caring.
No, it's not about that. But like an NBA coach, for instance, like calls plays, like draws up things during a timeout. You know, I would say offers some coaching to his guys during the game. You know, about different things to do.
Yeah, but if they was LeBron James or
well, that's not really what I'm talking
Anthony
about.
Edwards, it doesn't almost matter what the other guy's going to do.
Those are the exceptions to the rule. Not every team has a LeBron or an Ant, but when you look at baseball, yeah, the manager's not hitting, the manager's not pitching. None of the coaches are doing that, all right? That's obviously on the players. Where I have a problem with Scott Service is the way that he uses his pitchers in these situations that he decides to use them in, where maybe he'll use a better pitcher in a different situation as opposed to like a guy, facing guys on first and second in the 8th inning as opposed to the 9th. Maybe you should put your best leverage pitcher in, your technical closer in the 8th instead of the 9th when there's no runners on. Like there's just different situations. And then let me point this out. The other night when Logan Gilbert threw that ball over home plate, that was a defensive positioning problem, and that falls on Scott Service. You had Zach Neto at the plate. Zach Neto is a freaking bunter. That's all he does. He hits, but he is a known bunter in MLB. Even Dave Sims on the broadcast, as he stepped to the plate, said, hey, watch for the bunt. And where were the Mariners' first and third baseman?
Deep.
They were literally deep playing for the double play, and because Logan Gilbert was forced to go field that himself, which pitchers usually don't have to do because the fielders are actually there because the manager puts them in the right spot, you see where I'm going with this. There are things that do fall specifically on MLB managers, but in this situation for the Mariners, on Scott Service, he is failing them in different in-game situations.
And sometimes, though, managers reveal, it's like, I have no idea what that guy did. Like Snitker yesterday, my Bravos lost in extras to the Mets. First of all, can't catch a fly ball. Just losing that way was brutal.
Sucks.
Also had a base running error, and Snitker comes out and goes, I have no idea what the hell he was doing. It's like sometimes we're telling these guys what to do, and they're not listening. What I'm interested in is if the Mariners are going to continue to be aggressive, because this is already now the most aggressive they've been in this era, right? Like outside of like maybe a couple contracts and bringing certain guys in, trade deadline stuff, the Mariners aren't always a team that's doing the thing that people want them to do. They did. Now, I don't know if Randy Arozarena is going to get here and be the instant offense that they're hoping for. He very well could. To your point, his splits recently suggest a player that's kind of figuring this out a little bit. But do you continue to capitalize on a market where they're offering some. It's been limited, but getting Randy Arozarena because the Rays are not very good in that division, and maybe Vlad Jr. because the Blue Jays are also not very good in that division. I think they're the worst team in the division.
Yes, by far.
Can you capitalize on the weakness of the other teams? The Mariners aren't always a team we talk about that do this. And so you're encouraged now that they may do it. You're also encouraged that he's going to come in and add stuff. And I think this is the beauty of fandom. It's like we're just looking for a little ounce of hopium. Give us a little bit of something to just, yes, we feel it now. And the Mariners for so long never have. And they go out last night and they get Randy Arozarena. If you're a diehard Mariner fan and you care deeply, there's really no reason to not go swing for the fence and go get Vlad Jr. and say, you know what, we got pitching for this. If we can get this offense turned around, what's the separation right now? Is it still a game?
It's one game.
One game.
The Houston Astros won yesterday. They were both teams were off yesterday. It was Wednesday that the Houston Astros won.
It's a one-game difference. You got a lot of season to be played. Yeah, you blew a lead. Who cares? If you can get that offense turned around, you have the pitching to retake that division. Texas is not having a great year.
Although they are on your heels.
They're
now
2.5 back.
Yeah, it's getting close.
That is. The Angels are not a very good team, though they've owned you. And the A's are the A's. But a lot of the reason the Angels have owned you is because what? Your offense has been terrible.
Yeah.
So Arozarena is a great start. Can you keep it going? Can you plug along? I would argue that franchise owes it to that fan base. We'll have to wait and see if they're going to go add Vlad Jr.
The Mariners literally had, in their sweep against the Angels, 3 pitchers throw 3 quality starts. I believe their ERA was like under 2 or possibly even under 1, just for the starting pitchers. I think it was like a .48 ERA. They were amazing. And that alone is why you have to make a trade to try to compete at the deadline. Like you said, I mean, we can bitch about their 10-game lead that they gave up, but they are still in it. And you have to, for your job, if you're Jared DePoto or Scott Service, or, for the organization's health, go all in here because you've been waiting for this point. And I guess maybe it took you 3-4 months too long, but now you are in the mindset of going all in. You have to do it. You can't sit on the fence and just make one trade. You have to do it. If Vladdy Guerrero doesn't come to fruition, you have to go get somebody else. It just has to happen.
We will see what they do, but last night the Mariners late trade and get Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays. Finally making a move, hoping to add some offense to their lineup. Loaded second hour of the show. Sam Monson's going to join us, PFF.com. We'll check in on some NFL training camps. We start the second hour. Is this the most exciting time in college football? According to Dan Lanning, it is. Hour number 2, Dirt and Sprague on the Fan.
Hey, everybody, Sprague here. You're familiar with Three Mountains Plumbing, but did you know they're now 3
The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2, Dirt and Sprague here. On 1080 The Fan, the Odyssey app, 99.5 HD2. Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody.
Oh, what a beautiful Friday.
These are your coffee boys here. From Randy Arozarena trade talk, Seattle Mariners, to football. A lot of football in the second hour of the program. The Olympics open up today. We'll get to that at some point. Are you excited for the Olympic coverage? The time zone always makes it a little odd, so we'll get to that coming up. Sam Monson, a Pro Football Focus, is going to join us. Always kind with his time. Those good guys over at PFF.com, they work their keisters off, and they're very kind to us out here, even though we don't have a team. And so we'll do kind of a training camp storyline check-in with Sam Monson coming up here at the bottom of the hour for the Daily Ticker. We got a text during the break. So refreshing to turn on the fan and not hear Big Ten Media Day. Go Beavs. And we thank everybody that was hanging with us. Those shows were all over the place and wild, fun, exciting, unpredictable. Swag, I think, safely returned to Portland late last night. And so he'll be back next week. But interesting Big Ten Media Days and thought, because it kind of goes into what happened yesterday and what I saw. Dan Lanning in doing multiple interviews, said it on the Big Ten Network. I watched that at home. I saw the McAfee stuff, listened to Pate's stuff with him, and we talked to him as well. And one thing that was kind of a common theme for him yesterday with some of the national pundits was that, like, this is the most exciting time ever in college football, right? Like, he loves to throw those rights in there. And what I would say to that, because I put a poll question up late last night on Twitter, is this the most exciting time in college football ever? If you're Dan Lanning, certainly can make the case that that's accurate. But reality is, no. Now, bear with me here. I loved the expanded playoff. I think the expanded playoff offers more hope and optimism to more fan bases. I am of an age where the BCS, the AP polls, the 4-team playoff, these are ways that we have seen national champions be settled. And as frustrating as each have been, the 4-team playoff being limited to just 4, the BCS being a computer model that picks 2, even when the resumes don't make sense in our minds, or the AP model where it's like, hey, we got one writer that said we're number 1, we're claiming national championship. That didn't always happen, but there are teams that claim titles from 1933 because they had one writer say they were the best with their 6-2 record. And so there we go. There's a banner. The 12-team playoff offers a more balanced opportunity for more programs. We go into the BCS era, the AP poll era, and even the 4-teamer, it's like realistically, what do you got? 5-6 teams at best? Even if not all 12 are realistically going to win a title, it's football. And the old saying here at the Fan, football is football, it's still 12 new teams. So in a weird way, this NIL era, this transfer portal era, athletes being paid, conference realignment, it feels like, and I think in some part, has created more parity in the sense of teams can be on a more level playing field with some of the traditional juggernauts. Now, will they win it is a different conversation. But even if that's true, you also have separated even more from the haves and the have-nots. And so teams that have money, Oregon, teams that have very good put-together NIL, Ohio State, they can still separate themselves from how many other programs in college football. We went to Big Ten Media Day. We had Swag there. Day one, it was an inflatable duck in Ohio State. Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois, Rutgers. Nobody cares. And guess what? None of those programs are going to win the Big Ten. None of those programs are largely in the conversation. So it's exciting because you've got a 12-team playoff. It's exciting because you might have a few more teams every year be able to live on the hope that they might make the playoff and win the championship. Looking at Penn State here. But the reality is we lived in a world where one loss felt like it doomed your entire season. We lived in a world where if you weren't undefeated, oh my God, probably not going to get consideration. And you cannot match that excitement with the ability of teams to lose 2 games. I saw an article that said Oregon could make the playoff with 3 losses. And while I still am okay with football teams losing a game or 2 and getting into a playoff, that's not as exciting as a team that's like, hey, lose this and you're out of the title game for the rest of the year. It's your first non-conference game of the season.
I mean, so you're telling me that you're weighing that excitement during the season as opposed to like the end of the year chance at a championship is kind of what I'm hearing from you. Because I sit on the other end. I think the 12-team playoff makes it the most exciting time in college football. I believe schools like at Oregon State, even without a conference home, have a shot. That brings more fans to the table. That brings everybody together as opposed to just, the same 6 schools year after year. Maybe a new school after that gets thrown into the conversation every new year or 2, and then one drops off. But it just gives so much more of an opportunity for everybody to do something. And for me, that just makes it more exciting in general.
What is exciting about college football is the ability of, like, if you lose, everything kind of gets derailed. And while I don't think that's an accurate portrayal of football, it is far more exciting than saying Oregon lost to Ohio State. Okay. They play so-and-so next week, and their season is not impacted really at all. Maybe in the standings momentarily it is, but when you lost that game before, it's kind of devastation. I remember the reaction to Herbert and the Ducks losing to Auburn, and it's like, well, can't lose another game the rest of the year.
I said the program was on a downward trajectory. A Rose Bowl wasn't good enough for Maury.
That's fine.
I remember that.
That's fine. But, that's what I'm talking about. When you talk about most exciting, you may think Oregon State has a shot. I would challenge that.
I'm just saying schools like OSU, but yeah.
Yeah, but, is it realistic, or is it just something to say?
If you rank in the top 12 in the nation, you've got a shot. I think that is realistic on a particular year where you've got something happening and you go close to undefeated. Yeah.
How many undefeated teams did we have last year in college football?
Less than a handful or 0.
Okay, one of them didn't make the playoff.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're going to tell me Oregon State has a great year, a phenomenal year. You're telling me that they're going to rank ahead certain teams in power conferences?
Well, what I'm saying is the hope of that happening. I don't know for sure, but I think that the chance of that happening, the hope, I mean, what we were just talking about, the Mariners finally having hope after making trades, I just feel like that hope
is being in a real conference making like $30 to $50 million a year, not being a relative independent in a Mountain West schedule. That's hope.
That's fair. I'm not talking about the state of the program. What I'm trying to say is there are more programs that have an opportunity to do this now. But you make a great point.
Well, but that's the thing is I think you're going to look at like 4 or 5 teams from one conference making the playoff.
Okay.
So does that keep hope alive, or does that eliminate hope for a lot of others?
That's just kind of what's happening right now with the consolidation of college football.
Right.
And that's
so it's exciting we get some pretty good matchups, right? Like Ohio State, Oregon being a conference game, Michigan going to Washington. Yeah. These are exciting things for sure. The viewership numbers are crazy. They're great. Is it the most exciting you can have in your sport? I don't know, because I think the powers that have already existed that are largely going to continue to be the powers of the sport.
I mean, I hear with the excitement argument.
You're going to get Penn State now in the playoff. Penn State couldn't make the playoff before. They were 10-2. Franklin talked about this. 11-1, 10-2. Sometimes still not good enough at Penn State. Couldn't make a 14 playoff. Well, Penn State can lose those 2 games now, make the playoff. Penn State might be able to lose 3 games now and make the playoff. It's just a way to get the already established powers that be, who are kind of on the back burner a little bit, back into that conversation.
So more names is bigger. It's better. It's more exciting for college football.
But it's still the same names is my point.
I don't think that's necessarily true. We see teams float in and out of that conversation all the time. When's the last time Notre Dame did anything? Yet we're still talking about them like they are.
Notre Dame was in the playoff like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Did they win a championship?
No.
Yeah, 'cause Oregon has been in the playoff twice, but everybody throws them out. Washington made the playoff, then made the national championship two different times in 10 seasons, and nobody cares about the Pac-12. Nobody cares about any of those teams that come out of there. I guess my point is that the conversation from year to year can change for a particular team. I don't necessarily like it when a TCU gets into the national championship, but what this format does is forms, in my opinion, more excitement for more fan bases, and that's what college football is about, is the crazy local fan bases in each city.
It depends on the conference that you're talking about. Like the Big 12 is the conference that kind of separates itself here in the sense of even if there's a conference winner that's going to get a seed, are we buying one single team from the Big 12 to win the national championship?
I mean, probably not. No.
Right.
Unless it's like an elite Florida State, no.
Yeah, so I just think the landscape of the sport, there are elements of it that are surely different and exciting. A lot of this is dependent on your fandom, but most exciting, I'm not sold on that, is all my point is here.
Okay.
Because I still think you're going to end up with the same teams that are largely in the conversation that were already in the conversation prior to the 12-team playoff.
I mean, ideally, then, do you go backwards? And I'm not saying this would ever happen or we should, but, like, do you think then it was best with the 4-team situation? Or
no, I think they're going to expand it higher. I don't think it's going to go
No.
backwards.
I'm saying, but
forward,
what was peak excitement for you? BCS?
Well, if you're just simply talking, yeah, probably.
I mean, but that was like, that was throwing S against a wall and hoping something stuck. And when you're looking at the record of two opponents that Oregon played and trying to factor that into some dumb equation.
Yeah, but you had two spots. You had 2 spots dictated by a computer algorithm. So you had no idea, like, is my resume strong enough for this computer? Is this computer going to insert that we are good enough to be one of those? I'm not saying it's the best model. That's not the argument. I'm simply talking about the most exciting. That's all this is. It's not, well, I long for the days of the BCS. I long for the 4-team. I long for the A people. It's simply just saying, like, I remember college football and everybody being on pins and needles if their team lost a game.
Okay,
and fans freaking out. Oh my God, our season is probably cooked.
You're looking at the
2007 season is maybe the most exciting season ever because how many teams were number 2 and then lost?
No, I get it. You're looking at the frustration more as excitement, and I think maybe we're saying like the same thing, but just in different ways. I look at it as like sitting on your hands, pins and needles, which I guess is excitement for a fan base, like waiting to see, if you're going to lose a game and hoping that you don't.
Sure.
But that excitement for me is at the same level if my team is fighting for a spot in the college football playoff. And if you're talking about more exciting for like 4 or 5 programs in the BCS era as compared to now in the playoff era, you're just kind of upping the status of maybe those guys that were just sitting right on the outside, like a Penn State.
Yeah.
Isn't that more exciting for more fan bases?
It's exciting for you. Who are you rooting for? Do you think the Big Ten and the SEC, the top end of those top, let's say 5 teams in those conferences, are those going to change?
I mean, probably not.
Okay, so how's Purdue feel about that excitement? How does Indiana feel about that?
Well, step your game up.
What do you mean step your
Indiana's
game
a
up?
basketball school. It is what it is.
But like my point is you're excited because you're a Duck fan, right? And I get it. I do. But that's not going to change at the top of that conference. Those teams are largely going to stay the same. Ohio State's going nowhere. Michigan's probably going nowhere. Oregon, not going anywhere. Washington's a wild card in that. Penn State cares a great deal. So after those teams, then who's excited in that conference? And there's 18 teams in that conference. Is Nebraska going to be able to break through? Maybe. Maybe they'll have a year. Maybe they'll become something that I'm overlooking. Maybe they'll be what I think Washington will kind of regain. Maybe. But it's kind of a wait-and-see thing for them. Other than that, it's like, all right, now the other 13 teams in that conference, is Maryland living with excitement?
Well, they never did before. They didn't in that era of the BCS or 14 playoffs.
I know. I'm just simply
did.
going down the conferences, and when you talk about the expanded playoff, I still think we're largely going to get the same teams. There's just going to be a couple more of those slots. Like Penn State's not in the 4-team conversation. They're definitely going to be in the 12-team conversation.
I mean, I think that you have a situation now where like a Utah can slip in previous years where they haven't been able to.
Well, yeah. Well, Utah has had an ability previous in the Pac-12.
No. But what I'm saying is there are more slots for those teams that are on
Because they win their conference, they're in. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That are on the
Yes.
fringes. It's not just 4
Yes.
teams. Everybody has a shot, or more teams have a shot. That to me equals excitement. So.
Yeah. Maybe we're arguing the same thing, slightly different points.
I feel like you're saying the frustration is the excitement, which I do agree with, but I'm trying not to come at it from a Ducks fan's angle.
No, he got me thinking, because I said it like 3 or 4 times in different interviews yesterday, so it kind of got my gears turning of like, is this the most exciting time in college football? Because the coverage is better, the access for television is better, but is it the most exciting?
It's the most exciting if you're a college athlete because now you're getting paid.
Well, you're getting paid, you're getting that NIL money for sure.
Yeah.
Something else that I want to bring back about conference realignment that has also got my gears turning that we're not considering, I think, enough yet. I'll tell you what that is next on The Fan.
Everyone's talking about Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
Sam Monson's going to join us, PFF.com, coming up here at the bottom of the hour. We'll Sprague the line an hour from that point, so get the Sprague line sponsors into the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326. They shoot you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them at vancouverford.com. A couple thoughts coming in here. Somebody says, I think Sprague isn't excited because his team is irrelevant. As an Oregon fan, college football fan, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I get those texts and I see those tweets from time to time, and I kind of laugh about it, and I go, look, I may not be everybody's favorite. You cannot listen to this radio program and tell me that you think I'm not excited about college football. The amount of college football we talk on this show, yeah, my team got left behind. Not wrong. Valid point. I'm not a diehard Duck fan. I'm not Schultzy. I'm not Dusty. I'm not Dirt. I'm not whoever else, Buckley. Not a big, diehard Duck fan. That has nothing to do with being excited about college football. The conversation and the question was, is this the most exciting? And this is kind of the point I'm making. The best was the BCS. Every game mattered. We also didn't lose all of our kind of natural rivalries and the pageantry elements of it, whereas now it's so commercialized that it's changed. Don't mistake fandom of a team for not being excited for the sport. We are as jacked up as any show in the country for college football this year. We have a lot of plans and things we want to do in talking college football. So, yeah, my team isn't in the Big Ten. Has nothing to do with not being excited for the season. The question was, is it the most exciting time? That's all. Something that I heard yesterday, too, that I guess I hadn't really considered in dealing with this realignment stuff. One narrative going in for Oregon into the Big Ten is that, Oregon's not ready. And I threw that at Lanning, and it just was like, I don't know where this is coming from. Are we not watching games? Are we not watching rosters? Are we not seeing recruiting? Whether Oregon wins the title or not, I don't know. But, to suggest physically they're not ready for Big Ten football. They're not ready for Purdue. They're not ready for Northwestern.
For some reason, people just don't want Oregon to be good. I don't know, but they just don't.
Well, Lanning had some interesting, hey, if you could tell Big Ten fans one thing about Oregon, what would it be? And I'm paraphrasing, but he basically was like, we're bringing it. We do it different. And you're teasing, hey, we're ready. And I hadn't really considered this. With Lincoln Riley in USC, Jed Fish in Washington, who called it a reboot, and I knew that they'd been decimated with draft and portal and Kalen DeBoer departure. I knew they had. He really put into context by telling us exactly what it was for them. And let's just throw UCLA and Deshaun Foster a bone here because, they moved, and we'll see if they even say a word in that conference. But something I hadn't considered is all the narrative point being, are these teams ready for Big Ten football? Ohio State, Michigan, sure. Penn State, really good program, who just can't quite win that Michigan or Ohio State game every year to get over the hump. Is the Big Ten ready for them? Right? It's been kind of narrative-based, reversed. But last year what we saw was, and I know Washington will be the big question mark here because they're kind of restarting and revamping things. But Jed Fish in Arizona were mighty good on offense. They've got an experienced quarterback at least. I don't know if it's a quarterback that's going to win the conference or win 9 games, but Will Rogers is familiar with playing football at a college level, right? Is that conference really going to take a shock effect to those programs the way that those programs might shock the conference? So Lincoln Riley and USC right now are an interesting kind of case study here. A lot of people are looking at them saying, Miller Moss, you lost Caleb, your defense sucked. What are you, USC? You're not real. Lincoln, you're on a hot seat. Okay. Lit up Louisville pretty well. They're feeling good about their quarterback spot. He has all of the pedigree and track record as a coach to suggest that his quarterback is going to be ready. And they got a new D coordinator. So maybe he's taking defense a little more seriously than he ever has. They score points. You can think whatever you want about Lincoln Riley. They score points. Oregon, they score points. Washington, I know Jed Fish has scored points as a coach, and I know Washington last year scored points. It's interesting how the narratives can be created one way, and instead maybe it should be flipped. Is Purdue ready to score 40 points? Can Northwestern score more than 27? Remember the Ireland game against Nebraska?
Do you think it's like the old feeling of the Pac-12 kind of slipping into this conversation here?
Hell yeah, it is. It's a
Yeah.
little bit of conference pride for me. Again, not having fandom involved with the teams that went to the Big Ten, but it's more like I watched this conference last year. I've watched it my whole life.
Yeah.
We've had some down years for sure. I would say the last couple, we were a better conference than we got credit. We should have got a media deal. We didn't. That's poor leadership. That's not poor football. And so I look at the Big Ten, a little bit of our conversation from the previous segment of, hey, is Minnesota ready? Are they ready for those teteams? Is
No.
Iowa going to do anything but punt and score 9? I know their defense is usually pretty elite, but, are we not considered the other side of this, that these teams coming in from the West Coast, maybe not all 4 of them, maybe not all 3 of the 4 this year, but there's a real chance that those programs go to the Big Ten and disrupt them just as much as likely as that conference can disrupt what they're doing and how they operate.
I mean, if you look at the facts, all of these statements about Pac-12 teams or questions if they're going to be ready or former Pac-12 teams to face teams in the Big Ten are absolutely asinine because, Bo Nix just set an NCAA record for completion percentage and set all kinds of Oregon records for number of completions, yards, how many quarterbacks come out of the Pac-12 going into the NFL? Quite a bit, more than other conferences. I think there are more Pac-12 quarterbacks in the NFL right now than out of the SEC and the Big Ten. Why is that? Because a lot of offense comes out of the Pac-12. And for some reason, people forget that in this conversation and just want to throw it back to, hey, this is the Pac-10 of 1999. What the hell are we doing?
The Big Ten kind of gets a little bit of the SEC credit of I know their defense heavy. It's or they're offensively inept. I went the last 2 years, and I know there's some differences with some of these teams, but just the last 2 years, 2 years ago, scoring offense in college football, the Pac-12 had 5 teams in the top 10. The Big Ten had 2. And I bet you could guess the 2. It's the usual suspects, Michigan, Ohio State.
Yeah, it's
last year, who had more in the scoring offense? I'll be curious to see, as much as people want to talk about the physicality of Big Ten football, I want to see the other side of this. I want to see how ready Rutgers is for what these offenses are and have been for the last handful of seasons. And so that was another thing that I kind of took away yesterday from the Big Ten Media Day, 3-day, marathon, how it's all going to play out with the new teams versus what the conference reputation is. And so some of these teams coming in with some really good talent. Let's pause college football talk.
By the way, don't forget, Iowa and Kirk Ferentz, they literally are digging their heels in saying, no, we are not going to score.
No, I know.
Even with these new teams coming in.
We're playing defense and we're punting, baby. Punts.
No, it's going to be bad for you. I think finally that lifelong contract might get ripped up.
Let's talk NFL. Sam Monson joins us, Pro Football Focus. Daily Ticker is coming up next. We'll jump around to different training camps and narratives from the NFL with Sam Monson, PFF.com, next on The Fan.
This is a Big Ten Media Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Vulcan Design and Construction. Check out their award-winning outdoor living designs or schedule your free design consultation at vulcandc.com. First on The Fan, the Seattle Mariners making a big splash before the trade deadline, acquiring outfielder Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays for Seattle's number 12 prospect, outfielder Aiden Smith, number 22 prospect, right-handed pitcher Brody Hopkins, and a player to be named later. M's on the road today, starting a 3-game set in Chicago against the White Sox, trying to fight back into first place in the AL West. George Kirby and Drew Thorpe on the bump. First pitch set for 5:10 p.m. on Root Sports. Elsewhere around the league, the Arizona Diamondbacks acquiring left-hander A.J. Puck from the Miami Marlins for 2 prospects. Puck has a 2.08 ERA and 33 strikeouts since being moved to the bullpen earlier this season. And on the pitch, the United States women faring much better than the men in their opening group play match against Zambia, getting the 3-0 win to start the Olympics for them. Next up is Germany on Sunday. The men facing off against New Zealand tomorrow morning. That's at 10 a.m. on Peacock. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schultze at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Do it every morning. Dirt and Sprague. Visit with the insiders that are covering the stories you've heard about and some you haven't.
How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
The Daily Ticker with Dirt and Sprague is poured by Pelican Brewing. Be ready for your next afternoon vacation with Beak Breaker Tropical. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach.
All right, Daily Ticker is brought to you by Pelican Brewing. Visit pelicanbrewing.com for more details on locations, events, and award-winning beers. Independently brewed since 96, Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. Daily Ticker stop today. Felt after having a 3-day college football fest that we needed to check in. Training camps have opened to go to the NFL and talk with our good friend Sam Monson, PFF.com. You can find him on Twitter at PFF_Sam, and he's a good friend of the show, and he joins us now. Happy Friday, Sam. Does it feel like you've come out of the womb now that football season is in your life?
Yeah, definitely getting ready to ramp up again. Training camp started, preseason's just around the corner, and then we get the real action in just a few weeks.
Was it a nice reminder of how weird and funny Harbaugh is going to be being back in our NFL lives? Like, we had him in college, but now he's back in the NFL giving us all kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, Harbaugh is great entertainment as well as being a really good coach. So I think the NFL is a better place with Jim Harbaugh back in it. And I think he's going to be a successful coach. I mean, he has won literally every single place he's been, whether it's college or the NFL. There's a very, very short list of coaches for whom that's true. So a great get for the Chargers, and definitely, brings a lot more sort of eyeballs and entertainment to a franchise that, has been, I think, struggling a little bit for a fan base with moving from, San Diego to LA to be the kind of second team there. So, yeah, I think it's good for everybody.
How quick do you think they can get that thing humming? Herbert gets his contract, and I know a lot of people have talked about the talent they've lost. Harbaugh seems pretty excited about the weapons that they had. Ladd McConkey was a big pickup for them. They were super jacked about it. How quickly do you think the Chargers win with Harbaugh?
Yeah, that's the big question mark. I think everybody pretty much expects him to have success there. The question is just how long it's going to take. And, from the defensive side of the ball, that defense has had talent for years and has been underachieving. Maybe he can put that together quite quickly. The offensive side with Justin Herbert, we already know the ceiling, and in fact the floor is pretty high. It's just that they do have some holes there, and the receiving core is a potential weakness. So it's definitely possible that they could put that together really fast because of how good Herbert is and having the single most important player on the roster already intact and already in good shape. But they have struggled to find a good receiving core after shipping away the guys that they let walk this offseason.
Is there a reason that I'm not smart enough to know that Sam Monson would, of why the Cowboys so far have not wanted to pay CeeDee Lamb, Dak, or Micah Parsons?
Jerry Jones apparently basically admitted it to the media yesterday. He's in it for the buzz. He's in it for the off-season storylines, for the column inches. He apparently sort of talked to the media yesterday after his, official press conference, kind of off to the side, and said something along the lines of, I try to stir it up, and you have since I got here. It's good, be relevant. Like, this part of the show. Like, I read that as effectively admitting that, yeah, they put themselves in some awkward negotiations and salary cap problems and constraints because it generates buzz and hype, and ultimately that leads to more revenue dollars. And that's why, the Dallas Cowboys are the NFL's most valuable franchise. Ultimately, that's what they're striving for.
Sam Monson's our guest here, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. You can find all his great work there and find his Twitter account at PFF_Sam. The AFC North is it's a fascinating division, and we're Portland, so we got a lot of weird pockets of fandoms. Like there's Browns and Steeler backer bars here. Like we got all kinds of teams of fans from all over the country. The North might be the toughest division because all four are playoff-worthy teams. With Joe Burrow is healthy, we know that. The Steelers are interesting to me. Like, this is a no-brainer, but I'm not smart enough like Mike Tomlin. I don't get why we're just giving Russell Wilson the starting gig here, given what we saw for him the last 2 years and the way Justin Fields kind of ended his tenure with the Bears. With some people thinking, is it worth getting Caleb Williams, or should you build on Justin Fields? How do you think that quarterback battle is going to go for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson has shown obviously better quarterback play in the NFL than Justin Fields has. Now, it was a while ago, but we know it's there. We've at least seen it. We've seen Russell Wilson play at an extremely high level. The Justin Fields thing is still way more theoretical. And I think, the last couple of years went really badly for Wilson in Denver, but I think there's definitely a case to be made that Wilson in an Arthur Smith offense actually is going to be protected in a similar way as that he was in Seattle when he was playing at his best. And, everyone was sort of campaigning to let Russ cook, but Pete Carroll I think, had a better understanding that maybe you do need to protect this guy a little bit and sort of shift an offense in a way you don't for some other top-end quarterbacks. It's potentially this offense that will get him maybe not back to that level. I don't know if that guy is still there, and I don't know if the NFL defenses, the way they play now, sort of allows him to be the player that he used to be. But it might get you as close to that as you're going to get with present-day Russ. Now, that being said, Arthur Smith's offense also likes to target the middle of the field. Russell Wilson has never done that particularly well. It might not be a great match, but I think it makes sense to start off with the idea that let's see how he fits in this offense, because if it's a good fit, I think that he is probably the best player that they could put out there. But I wouldn't give him a particularly long runway to prove that. Like, if it shows that it's not going to work particularly well, or if it's not immediately obvious that this is going to get a better version of Russell Wilson, I think you give Justin Fields a shot. I mean, he has improved every year of his career. He was going in the right direction with not that much help around him in Chicago. And I think the door is still far from closed on the idea that Justin Fields can be a good quarterback in the NFL.
Who's the team, Sam, for you that's getting like the most buzz and juice that you're not buying?
I guess, I mean, the Cowboys and the Eagles are two teams that expect to contend in the NFC. The Eagles' collapse last season was so concerning and disappointing, and Dallas have obviously had this entire offseason of, let's pretend we're all in, but actually not do anything differently. So I think both those teams are potentially in less good shape than they've been in the last couple of years heading into the season.
What does that say about Hurts? Because it's funny you mentioned the Eagles. I was actually going to ask you about Jalen Hurts, who, 2 years ago, he's in a Super Bowl, and we're like, oh my God, they've got the guy. He's calm, he's cool, he's collected, he seems like a good dude. And then last year, they just completely crumble, and whether he was hurt or not, he didn't look like himself, and here we are. He's got the contract. What does it say about Jalen Hurts that you're kind of bringing them up in this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, everybody in Philadelphia took a step backwards or sort of fell apart during the season last year. So it's definitely not just Jalen Hurts. And he absolutely was dealing with injuries all the way through last season. And that's, when a guy is playing through injuries, it tends to get forgotten in the discourse later on. The same thing happened with Justin Herbert when he was dealing with, torn rib cartilage for most of the season. And we just kind of forgot about it because he played in those games. So I do think the last season probably isn't a fair reflection of what Jalen Hurts can and will be going forward. But the entire Eagles team needs to get back on track. And I think they've lost some talent that they haven't necessarily immediately replaced.
When you look at the NFC West, I find that also an interesting division where it's like the Rams and the Niners have kind of been the usual suspects here. The Seahawks have been in somewhat the conversation, but largely kind of wild card and then done. Cardinals are fascinating. Kyler's looked good in camp. They're kind of saying the right things. People seem pretty excited about maybe the Cardinals being a significantly better team than a year ago. How would you parse out the NFC West with camps opening up, Geno saying I can still get better, the Niners dealing with this Ayuk and Trent Williams kind of holdout with contract stuff, Purdy, he's healthy finally for camp. He really wasn't at this point last year. And the Rams obviously found something in Puka Nacua to pair with Kupp and everything they're kind of hoping to go in post Aaron Donald. How would you parse out the West?
Yeah, it's potentially one of the best divisions in football. It's less sort of for sure, I think, than the AFC North, but the 49ers we expect to be probably the best team in the NFC. Now, you're right, they've got to deal with some contract issues and get guys happy and under contract and back in camp, but assuming they work those things out, that roster is still absolutely stacked. We expect them to be the class of not just the division, but probably the conference. The Seahawks have a really, really good roster with the exception of an offensive line that potentially could undermine all of it. But if they're able to get an offensive line playing at an even average level, that's a really good football team top to bottom outside of that. The Rams, they've got enough there. The core pieces are in place in the right places. That receiving group, Matthew Stafford, now a couple of running backs that I think are going to be dangerous. The Rams definitely have the ability to make some noise. And I agree. I think the Cardinals are going to be a much better team than they were a year ago. The addition of Marvin Harrison Jr. has the potential to be one of those receiver adds that's just completely transformative to an offense. Like when the Bengals added Jamar Chase or when the Dolphins added Tyreek Hill. He might not be that good right away, but I think he's going to completely transform the way everybody else looks in that offense. So Kyler's going to look better. Michael Wilson, who was a nice receiver last year, is going to look so much better now that he doesn't have to be the number one guy. Somebody like Greg Dortch from the slot, I think, is going to make a lot of noise now that he's further down the depth chart. Like, I just think Harrison coming in makes everybody look better.
What has stood out and what has kind of gotten your antennas raised watching the Giants Hard Knock stuff? Like, do you find that interesting, seeing the front office stuff being kind of exposed and seeing how they operate in that way?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I don't know how much of it is just because it's new. You know, the old format had gotten a little bit stale.
Yeah.
We've seen it so many times, and now we're getting a slightly different view of their off season. But I think part of it is also it kind of is everybody's most excited part of the year, right? Everybody loves free agency. Everybody loves the draft. It's when we get to sell hope and talk about these guys that we're not necessarily familiar with day in, day out, all the way through the season. So I think it is the most exciting part of the year. Now, some of those scenes feel very staged, and actually, I think the best sort of thing from the Giants' perspective is if they are staged, because if they're not, there are some conversations taking place at an extremely surface level to a kind of concerning degree if you're a Giants fan. But it's some really interesting stuff, particularly I think the most recent episode where we got to see them kind of wargaming all of the trades and all of the different scenarios they had planned out for the draft. I think was a really fascinating look kind of behind the curtain there. Like, it's not just ad hoc, once you get to a pick and this is the way it's gone. They had sort of deals in place in principle with half the league up and down the first half of the first round of the draft.
Yeah. Get you out of here with this one, man, because we always appreciate it. The Raiders deciding to make a Patrick Mahomes Kermit the Frog puppet to make fun of. Is this surely going to bite them?
Yeah, probably. I mean, theoretically it's all fun and games, but why would you poke that bear? It's not like it's gone well for anybody in the past. It just doesn't seem like a smart thing to be doing.
No, not at all. Good stuff. Pro Football Focus, where you find his great work on Twitter at PFF_Sam. He is one of our favorites, one of the best to be doing it in the industry. Thank you so much for the time, Sam. We always appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of training camp, and we'll catch up with you down the road.
Anytime, guys. Stay easy.
All right, there we go. Good stuff. Sam Monson, PFF.com. That was the Daily Ticker, brought to you on the Fan by Pelican Brewing. Been brewing since '96. They're born at the beach. Visit them at pelicanbrewing.com. Crunch Time is next on the Van.
Who's stinking it up?
Woo! Do not go in there.
It's time for Who's Stinking It Up, a sports lowlight that's ripped from the headlines.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Brought to you by Three Mountains Home Services. Schedule your appointment online at threemountainshomservices.com.
Hits that ball to right. Laureano spreading over there. Oh, he overran it. And the Mets are going to walk it off in the 10th.
Yeah, the New York Mets walked it off last night, indeed.
That was a bad overrun by your right fielder.
What are we doing? It's a fly ball. Catch the ball.
Focus.
They're a half game up now on the Mets, who are red hot in the wild card. My Bravos are just terrible. Who's stinking it up? The Braves. Brought to you by our great friends at Three Mountains Home Services. Make your home services delightful at the pros. Tackle the projects you need completed. Schedule an appointment online. Three Mountains Home Services. That's threemountainshomservices.com. Hey.
topics you want to hear.
What's the pressure? Don't sit here and act like there's no... We get nervous teeing off in front of a gallery on the 10th hole at Eastmoreland.
Crunch Time, brought to you by Crunch Fitness, with memberships as low as $9.99 per month. Find your Crunch Time in Portland, Vancouver, and online at crunch.com.
All right, Crunch Time brought to the fan by Crunch Fitness, as low as $9.99 per month. Find them at their multiple locations at crunch.com. We have a lot to get to in the final hour of the show. You know, that was the other thing. We didn't even talk about it. We were a 4-hour program for back-to-back days. What happened? I thought we'd be a 4-hour program today.
Well, I mean, we don't need to.
Are we getting teased? Well, maybe we do. Maybe the people want an extra hour of Dirt and Sprague. I mean, that'd be a lot, actually. But
I mean, Sprague and Schulte today, but
yes. Sprague and
yes.
Schulte, but yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I mean, no, I don't think so.
Just saying.
No,
6 to 10 all of a sudden. Hey, we need you guys 6 to 10. All right.
If you asked me to hang around an extra hour, I would. All right. And yes, I'll do it. Talk on the radio, more sports, sure.
We will Sprague the line at 8:30. So I'm collecting them right now at the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326. They shoot you right before, during, and after the sale. VancouverFord.com. Get the Spring Line sponsors in. I will check the YouTubes. I haven't checked the YouTubes in a couple segments. A lot going on here behind the scenes that we're trying to figure out. Good stuff from Sam Monson, like really, really good stuff. If you missed our NFL conversation with him at pff.com, you can find it at 1080thefan.com. Doing the Big Ten Media Day, the B1G, I've not been able to focus on other college football dealings or really a lot of NFL, right? It was a lot of Big Ten, this guest, that guest.
It's hard. You kind of, especially in this biz, you focus like that. You kind of start to lose, like, oh, NBA news, NFL news.
Drift
It's
off.
just kind of, yeah.
Yeah, we got some NBA news we'll get to at the top of the hour. But this was said a day or so ago, and I saw it, but we didn't have really a window for it. NFL training camp is opening up, and I am fascinated by the Chargers. I'm not a Charger fan. I think Herbert's amazing. I'm not one of these guys that like questions if he can win. I think the talent's there. I think they're going to run the football. I actually think the Chargers are a sneaky good division pick. Like, that's how much in Harbaugh I trust. That being said, Harbaugh is a different dude. And he had this when he was asked after day one, how training camp opening up as he's now the Charger coach. How does all this feel for you, Jim?
The way it feels, I mean, feels like New Year's Day, you know, feels like being born. Feels like coming out of the womb, you know, it's like you're in there and it's comfortable and it's safe, and now you're out, you're born, the lights are on, you know, it's bright, you got chaos, people looking at you, people talking at you, and just feels good to, you know, have it happen.
Does football season coming back in your life feel like coming out of the womb?
I mean, no, I never really thought of it like that. Although when he describes it as such,
it's different for him, his experience versus our experience. We're not at camp. The lights aren't turning on for us.
I'm not a new head coach. Yeah.
No, we're listening to podcasts. We're watching TV shows. We're reading articles.
Drinking Miller High Life and waiting for my 10 a.m. game to kick off.
I got a couple more things on the NFL I want to get to start the final hour of the show, and then there's an NBA thing I want to get to. So NFL season is back. For Harbaugh, it feels like coming out of the womb. Many of us are pretty excited about camps opening. And so let's kick off the final hour with some NFL conversation, some stuff going on. Why do this? Don't really know what the benefit of it is. And is this looming for this team? Because it's quite scary and a big part of what we have to consider when talking about the NFL now. Loaded final hour. We'll Sprague the line, get the sponsors in. Dirt and Sprague, hour number 3 on The Fan.
Calling all collectors, creatives, and
Back in the final hour of the radio program on a beautiful Friday. Happy July 26th every day. We got the Olympics. The opening ceremonies are going to start here in about 2 hours and 30 minutes.
I'm excited for the Olympics.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm an Olympics guy. Now, every time, whether it be winter or summer, as soon as they start, that's like if I'm having trouble finding stuff to watch, it's what's on in the background of my house.
We will get to that at the end of the show. We'll Sprague the line in about a half hour, so you can text in or send in or tweet in or whatever. Sprague the line sponsors, we got some good ones that I wrote down, and let's keep them coming in. Got to insult me as much as we possibly can.
Me too. Please do.
You can throw Schultz in that too, but usually I'm the brunt of them because, well, I'm not a great gambler, and so people like to make fun of me for that.
Bet you had a better season than I.
I didn't have a good year.
Neither did I, bro.
That account got to zero.
I mean, remember I won that stupid MLB parlay, but
that's right.
Yeah, like that
big on
$600 off of two, but yeah.
Well, sometimes that ends up being the only win of the year. You know what I mean? Like
that's
about it. Like that. And so, Charles Barkley has spoken out about the new NBA media rights stuff. We'll get to that coming up. But we played Jim Harbaugh coming out of the womb. He is excited. Football season's here. It's the equivalent to him of being born. Sometimes there's a part of me that feels that way. I'll admit. I'm not coaching. I'm not involved in the day-to-day the way that he is. But, man, I love that sport.
I hear you.
And so reading about all this stuff, I don't like to talk a whole lot of Cowboys. I know they get brought up from time to time on the show, but I know the national shows hit it so much, it's mildly annoying. I just simply want to ask, was it not a massive deal that the owner of the Cowboys basically said, I'm just interested in being entertaining? He's got 3 pivotal players trying to get contract extensions. 1 or 2 of these guys is going to get paid. I just would be shocked if they didn't. But it's also the Cowboys, and they said that Mike McCarthy didn't get an extension because he lost to the Packers. And everybody's like, should have got fired, but okay.
Yeah, lame duck him. Come on, guys.
I thought it was a really bad look for them yesterday, his press conference, Jerry Jones. And they've got Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and now and Dak. And Dak's like, it's negotiating tactics to a certain extent. But Dak's like, hey, all the greats played for different teams, so I'm kind of prepared to have to do that in my life. I don't know what they're doing in Dallas. It's a very weird time. They've got talent. They've got guys that you like. But they stuck with the coach that's not, in many people's eyes, very good. Lost a bad home playoff game. And now refusing to pay 3 pretty prime spots. I don't really know what the Cowboys are doing other than trying to just be in the headlines. So it's very confusing to watch that.
I mean, I hope they give CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons a big bag here soon. I'm assuming that's what Jerry Jones wants to do, and he's just kind of like,
if you wanted to, you would. If you wanted to, get this done. Now,
I mean, Jones is a shrewd negotiator, though. I would not be surprised if he's sitting there thinking that he's going to drag this out as they get closer to game 1, saying, hey, you know what? If it saves me an extra 10 to 15 million, that's fine. That's the kind of dude he is.
He compared himself, Schultz. Did you catch his presser yesterday?
I caught one clip. I did not see the whole thing.
What clip did you catch?
Basically just hit what you said, like him wanting to be like the center of attention and just.
He comped himself to Patrick Mahomes. He said, I'm kind of like Mahomes running the option.
I missed that.
He says when it comes to negotiating, you don't know when I'm going to flip the ball. If I'm going to toss, am I going to toss that ball or am I going to go to the sideline? Like, what am I going to do? And I just am like laughing about like how pissed I would be watching this guy as if I was a fan of this. They were really good last year. They probably going to be good again this year. I don't think the division's particularly strong. I don't know about Washington. Philly's a question mark.
Everybody's coming back, yeah.
The Giants don't seem great with Daniel Jones. But, like, this is why Swag abandoned him. Now, you could certainly question that, but this is why he abandoned. He couldn't take it anymore. Part of this conversation, it's not even my favorite thing to talk about with football. Like, I genuinely love talking about the games, the execution, the coaching decisions, right? The who made the throw when they needed to, what defense came up with the stuff. I genuinely love that stuff. But a part of this, all of this has to be now is, like, quarterback pay. And who gets the contract and who gets sacrificed because of that contract. Tua hasn't been paid yet.
Nope.
Don't really understand what they're doing there. And Bill Barnwell did like a really in-depth piece. San Francisco is dealing with multiple kind of holdouts here. Brandon Ayuk wants to get paid. And Trent Williams kind of surprised the world by saying, I'm not showing up. Give me more money. And so they've got 2 pretty big pieces that want their money. As Barnwell points out at ESPN.com, this is their last cheap year of Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
They're probably going to have to pay Brock Purdy. Now, what they're looking at paying him, it's crazy. It could get up to $65 million. If Dak's going to make 60,
I guess that's the going rate, yeah.
the only two quarterbacks with
better
better QBRs last 2 years, Schultze, in the NFL are Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Brock Purdy, and you certainly make the argument about targets and weapons and system and all that. He's had success. And he's, I believe, 17-4 as a starter.
He deserves to be paid.
So, yeah, like if you believe in him, and Shanahan's already saying this is great to have him in camp. He wasn't able to practice at this point last year. You pay him 5 years, $300+ million, $65 million a year.
Yeah, he's probably giving you like the cheapest rate per win as far as quarterbacks, like in the history of the NFL.
He's probably the best value athlete in sports.
Yeah, ever.
I mean,
making what, $800,000 and then living with a roommate starting for the San Francisco 49ers? No, usually those guys are making 15, 18 mil out of
you
college.
could certainly make arguments for other athletes that are getting paid that still bring more, and like because of salary cap stuff, they're still underpaid. But like value, success, all of that metric stuff, it's hard to think of one more than Brock. So we'll have to see San Francisco what they're going to do, because if you have that contract looming, what do you do with Brandon Ayuk? Trent Williams is great. He's elite, but he's getting a little old. So it's like, how much more do you, and he's offensive line, so you got to invest. So I don't know, man. I don't know how these teams are going to navigate all this stuff. It's wild to me, these quarterback contracts and how these teams all kind of feel just stuck dealing with them.
I mean, I know Dak Prescott's a good regular season quarterback, but for him to compare himself to one of the greats, I think that's a misnomer. Yeah, he's put up a lot of stats, but like, dude, you haven't done it in the postseason.
But this is the age-old quarterback thing, Schultze. I'm with you.
Yeah.
What's your alternative?
What I've been hearing,
Drake
whispers,
May, like
Trey freaking Lance. I've been hearing
good luck with
whispers
that.
from. No, I hear you.
Good luck with that.
No, but hot take. I think starting 2025, they're going to go with Trey Lance. I think Jerry Jones thinks he knows better than everybody.
Yeah.
Here's my opinion of what he's going to do. He's going to pay CeeDee. He's going to pay Micah, and then he's going to tell Dak Prescott to walk. Say good luck. Why don't you go see if the Rams will pay you or somebody else is going to pay you? And I'm going to go with Trey Lance, who I'm pretty sure Jerry's behind these little reports, been slipping in. Reports to reporters out there saying that, hey, Trey Lance really getting a hold on the offense. Trey Lance
I saw
really
a highlight
comfortable as a
thing of
Dallas
Lance,
Cowboy.
and I'm like, oh, God, here we go with the Trey Lance business. Get
Come
out of here.
on.
I asked Sam this question. I don't know if you guys saw this. You probably did because, we're all on the internet. The Vegas Raiders jokingly brought out a Kermit the Frog Patrick Mahomes Muppet.
Oh, that's so good.
And it's great. It really is. This is the kind of stuff that I love. I also was in the same way going, why would you do this to yourself?
Kermit the Frog here.
Kermit the Frog
Kermit. Hello, hey, Pat Mahomes.
That's a good little Kermit you've got.
Why are there so many? I think, honestly, I do Kermit better than the current Kermit right now.
But
thank you.
You're the Raiders. What are you doing?
No,
There's definitely got to be a Raider puppet busted out during a touchdown celebration on the sideline at some point, right?
They got to have fun, but they are putting themselves out there for all kinds of hate.
I just love, I don't love that the Chiefs just every year now are probably going to be the pick to win the Super Bowl. Like, as a fan of a non-Chiefs team, that kind of sucks.
Yep.
What I would say is, though, I love how in the head he is on teams.
Oh, he lives rent-free in everybody's
The
heads.
Raiders making a puppet to make jokes about him. Jamar Chase was told the top players in the NFL, according to, I don't know, NFL.com or ESPN or something. And they were like, you know who number one is? And Jamar Chase is like, I'm not saying his name. Nope. I refuse to say his name.
Like he who must not be named.
Yeah.
Like freaking Voldemort. That's
he
great.
basically is the Voldemort of the NFL. Like, people don't want to say his name, or he is bothering people to the point where we're making mock Kermit the Frog puppets. And so Patrick Mahomes, who may have gotten another weapon in Xavier Worthy, he's living in the heads a little bit with these people.
I mean, I'm assuming that players didn't think after the whole Tom Brady success of 10 to 15 years while taking less salary with the Patriots would then be repeated with another dynasty and Pat Mahomes essentially doing the same thing, not taking full quarterback salary money to allow his team to pay other people and basically give two middle fingers to the rest of the NFL. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to say his name either.
Justin Fields took ones with the Steelers. I asked Monson about that, and I understand Sam's answer. Justin Fields, I think, will be starting for that team by week 6.
I'm
Hold
not
that for the
surprised.
hot take business. I think Justin Fields should be given an equal competition. I don't know what Russ has done the last 2 years to suggest he should start. Arthur Smith offense, I saw that. Didn't look great.
I mean, if you're asking me who wants it more, I don't even know either one, and I'd say Justin Fields. So just that alone would make me put him at QB1.
Also, we noted this when Dirt was on the show, like maybe a week or two ago, and it's not an important note, although there's a Caleb highlight of him rolling out to his left, and the way he did at USC, just rolling out, throwing away from his body, and just making a ridiculous play.
Just the twisting and the kind of almost like Pat Mahomes.
There was one yesterday, and look, highlights are crazy, and largely this is done against nothing. He did that yesterday, though, throwing to Keenan Allen on the sidelines. And I went, oh, God, I can't wait to watch this guy play in the NFL. There's a story at ESPN.com about Matt Eberflus. We noted this. Matt Eberflus basically made himself a zaddy and has reestablished confidence by doing this. I'm not kidding. There's a real write-up of how he grew a beard out, he styled his hair right, and he just has all kinds of cachet and pizzazz. He's got the riz, as the kids would say. And so because Matt Eberflus has decided to zaddy himself up, there's people in Chicago that suddenly feel confident about their coach. And we noted that on the show, like, yo, he's kind of going out the way of trying to make himself look good. That evidently has worked, as there's an actual write-up at ESPN.com. Matt Eberflus panicked. He looked down at the barber's cape and saw several inches of his wet hair clinging to the navy fabric.
So we like hot people in America.
We love
shocked.
hot people in America.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Like,
of
course.
Man, you grow a beard. Matt Eberflus, Zaddy in Chicago, confirmed. Now we've got faith in Matt Eberflus.
He's got Riz. Let's go.
He's got the Riz.
My God.
He's got it. People are confident now. Chicago's going to maybe compete for a playoff spot or their division.
12-5, baby. Let's go.
Hey, we'll ramp up NFL talk as well. Training camps are around the corner, and so Dirt will be back next week. We will ramp up more and more NFL talk. The Olympics are starting. We got to Sprague the line, so get some Sprague the line sponsors in so we can read those off. Give you some bets over the weekend. Coming up next, this man has responded, and he's responded perfectly. That's next on The Fan.
It's time for a sports injury report. The injuries and rehab that impact the success of sports teams. Brought to you by Rock Orthopedic.
Is 0-2 to Bailey. His swing on and missed. And Clayton Kershaw with a scoreless first inning back.
There's Clayton Kershaw returning. First time he's played in quite a bit, man. The Dodgers really could use a Clayton Kershaw in their life.
Tony Gonsolin's still on the 60-day DL.
Yep.
Yamamoto, I think he's going to now be out for the rest of the season. And
They've had pitching problems.
Just DFA James Paxton. They need a trade. I'm shocked, but they still need a trade.
Yeah, there's Kershaw. He's coming back. This sports injury report is presented by Rock Orthopedic Board, certified specialists who diagnose and treat the widest range of orthopedic cases with care and expertise. To schedule an appointment with Dr. Shane Hanslick, visit rocpdx.com.
The Ducks are on a roll.
They have hammer recruiters, and they have a
I'll tell you right now, Schultz, people really want you to start saying Randy Arozarena's name correctly. You have, it's been kind of a running theme all day on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm
Every once
sure
in a
that
while
I'm-
you say it and somebody goes, can you say this guy's name right?
So it's not Raina, it's Reina.
Arozarena.
Arozarena. I thought, last update, I thought I said that correctly.
I don't know. I'm reading text and...
I'm sure I suck at it. I apologize. This is why Joe and I tried to educate ourselves on it, and I'm still not educated on it.
Well, I was kind of curious when you said that earlier, like what made you want to be educated on it, given like, since he became, I think he was Rookie of the Year, right? Like that's when I found out how to say it.
It was just the possibility that the Mariners were going to acquire him, and he and Vlad Guerrero Jr. are two of the big names.
I think we need to blame Joe Fish on this.
Well, I heard it twice, and I think I keep wanting to say it in the Cuban pronunciation. That is Enya.
Don't be a swag. Don't be a swag.
No, I always...
Because we've had swag do the accent, and people are like, yo, you and I actually don't accent that thing.
I always question why people do that. Should I say my name? I speak English all the time, but should I say it Jordan Schultz? Like that, like it's German, right? Like old German Schultzy? That sounds so weird. I don't understand why people do that.
Yeah. Randy Arozarena traded to the Mariners. We talked about that earlier. You can catch it. You can catch any part of the show that you may have missed at 1080thefan.com on the podcast section. I wanted to very quickly give a shout out to Jason Swigard. Did a great job busting his old keister over there in Indianapolis for us. He got to enjoy it on the company dime.
Damn right.
St. Elmo's dinner, shrimp cocktail, a little ribeye, maybe a little bourbon. Had a good time. But he worked his tail off those last 3 days in Indy. That was not an easy venture. We're new to this, being, from the state of Oregon. And it was a little bit of an S show on their end. And so Swag was just having to, figure it out with, 100 different people. And also, I want to give a shout out to Danny and Dusty, who were doing 5 hours. So I was doing 4, they were doing 5. And so we were all kind of going on the fly with what we could do. And I thought they did a bang-up job as well as soon as I got off the air, and they followed it up. So kudos to everybody. You did a great job. Jeff Russ did a great job. Will Ortner did a great job. This is a full team, inclusive. Rah, look at us. We accomplished something on our end. Even if everything wasn't completely lined up for us to succeed, I thought we still were able to succeed as much as we possibly could.
It's the most exciting time at 1080, baby. Most exciting time.
It is exciting, actually. Yeah, let's get back in that debate. What's exciting? What's not exciting?
Let's go.
Basketball coverage on the Fan is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile, and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. I read that because Charles Barkley is back in the news.
Oh, what did Chuck say?
Well, what I love about Charles is I'm done. This is my last thing. Kenny. And then this is the last thing I'm going to say. And then he'll say something later. No,
he's retired now, right? After this season.
Well,
yeah.
Wait for the money. Wait for that money call to come in, and then we'll see. But no, the NBA, we briefly mentioned this, has decided to go Amazon. There's reports that TNT didn't match all of the Amazon features, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, this isn't shocking, I think, to people that followed it. The NBA is going to be on Amazon Prime. They'll have the in-season tournament, the NBA Cup, all of that stuff. Charles Barkley, noted Turner employee, not happy, sent out a statement. He doesn't tweet, but a statement was released nonetheless. Quote, clearly the NBA has wanted to break up with us from the beginning. I'm not sure TNT ever had a chance. TNT matched the money, but the league knows Amazon and these tech companies are the only ones willing to pay for the rights when they double in the future. The NBA didn't want to piss them off. It's a sad day when owners and commissioners choose money over the fans. It just sucks. I just want to thank everyone who's been at Turner for the last 24 years. They are the best people and the most talented, and they deserve better. I also want to thank the NBA and its fans, the best fans in sports. We're going to give you everything we have next season, end quote. Chuck not holding back. We didn't expect him to.
Of course not.
But Chuck is hinting at the right stuff. You're going into the future. This is an 11-year deal, okay? He is 100% accurate that the ones that are going to double up payments largely going to be the tech companies.
Yeah.
So you can't piss them off. It would have made probably Amazon very frustrated if they would have taken the TNT deal that was quote-unquote matched and backed out of the Amazon agreement. And so We all expect Charles to tell the truth, and he 100% did here, calling out the NBA for what it really is. You're looking to move on. Now, look, I'd also say to Charles Barkley, it is a bummer. Some of these people may lose gigs. I'm not going to see this show maybe anymore. We'll see. Maybe Amazon will throw a bag that they can't say no to. Let's not also act like David Zaslav was running everything very smartly on his end and representing Turner in these negotiations. Like telling people out loud, we don't need the NBA, and then being seen courtside rocking an NBA hat because you realize everything you're deciding to do as the head of Warner Media has not been great. He tanked CNN completely. Like CNN is it's unwatchable, and it already was to a lot of people. But what he did to it blew it up. The whole revamping HBO Max and just like now we're just Max. It's like
it's still stupid. I hate it.
What are you doing? I'm used to it. I don't care that much, but like it was not met with a lot of positive reaction. And then the comments publicly of we don't need the NBA. Look at us. And now you like come crawling on your hands and knees back to it. It's like, yeah, the NBA is choosing the tech companies for sure. I get it. It's money. It's all of this stuff, by the way, is based on money
and access.
But Charles also, and he's kind of alluded to this in interviews, their leadership or their face fronting person of all of these negotiations has kind of been an idiot and not handled things right either.
It's frustrating because I know that there are guys like you and I that are in their 30s going on 40 and older that have been watching this program forever. I mean, it started in like 90, 91 or something like that with Ernie Johnson inside the NBA on TNT.
It geared up really in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah. And really, I mean, so my whole life, essentially, I've gotten to watch this. And I understand why people are pissed that it is going away. But we are in the world now of new streaming TV. We're in the world now of access to athletic events being so much different than just turning on your terrestrial signal and grabbing it, at your signal at home. You're not sitting down if you're 22 years old, more often than not anyways, to watch a game on TNT Wednesday, Thursday night, 7 p.m., and then sit there and then watch the guys debating. That's kind of an our age thing, and I understand that the NBA is trying to reach guys our age, gals our age, fans our age and older, but more importantly, as you talk about the future and you talk about these companies that are dealing with the NBA and the association trying to make sure they don't piss them off because they're thinking of 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future, these becoming, $50 billion deals, $100 billion deals. They're thinking far ahead, and in that, they're thinking about the access to younger fans, and we're just going away. I'm sorry, y'all. If TNT does not want to try and mold themselves into something new other than just throwing their stream onto Max, because that's essentially what we've seen them do. TNT available as a channel. We could watch games this year if you had Max as a package. You didn't have to sign up for terrestrial television. You could watch live NBA games with TNT on Max. They've got to move it beyond that. And if their only plan was to just throw it on streaming instead of adding programming, instead of adding something that Amazon says they're doing for the NBA, I mean, they're doing themselves a disservice and just leaving themselves in the dust. And if they want to complain, they're going to be screaming out basically into a black hole.
Well, we'll see what happens with them. There's a report that Amazon wants to hire inside the NBA, so maybe they work an agreement out, but also Ernie says he will only work for Turner, and Charles says, I'm retiring.
If they offer Ernie double what he's making, they have the money to.
We don't know if he operates that way. Not everybody does need to. I mean, Ernie Johnson's already a multi-millionaire.
Hey, look at Jalen Brunson. He doesn't operate that way.
Yeah,
he took less money to stay with the Knicks. No, I hear you. It's a good point.
There's some breaking news-ish out of college football. I'll give you that heads up. I just saw this. I know it's about an hour late, but I'll talk about that very briefly. And we'll Sprague the Line coming up next. Get those Sprague the Line sponsors in to the Vancouver Ford text line 503-864-6326. That's next, but first Schultze with the sports update.
This is a Big Ten Media Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update is brought to you by A&E Plumbing, Heating, and Air, serving Portland, Southwest Washington, and the Gorge. Online at ANEHeatingandCooling.com. It's hard to stop a train. First on the Fan, the United States women faring much better in their opening group play match in the Olympics against Zambia. They got the 3-0 win. Next up for them is Germany on Sunday. The men facing off against New Zealand tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. You can catch that on USA and Peacock. Moving on to baseball, the Seattle Mariners making a big splash before the trade deadline, acquiring outfielder Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays for Seattle's number 12 prospect Aiden Smith. He's an outfielder. Their number 22 prospect, right-handed pitcher Brody Hopkins, as well as a player to be named later. Not sure they're going to have him in a uniform tonight, but the M's hitting the road for a 3-game series in Chicago against the White Sox. They're trying to fight back into first place in the AL West. George Kirby and Drew Thorpe on the bump. First pitch set for 5:10 p.m. on Root Sports. And elsewhere around the league, the Arizona Diamondbacks acquiring left-hander A.J. Puck from the Miami Marlins for 2 prospects. Puck pitching to a 2.08 ERA and 33 strikeouts since being moved to the bullpen earlier in the season. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Schultze at the 1080 The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Got a smart speaker? It's the Fan in your office and every
Brought to you. Read these here. I'd actually take a Sprague pick over here in Pat John, say UW fits better in Big Ten country in the previous conference. Did he really say that? My God.
Well, that's awful.
Spring Line brought to you by the Seattle Mariners. Even with Randy Arozarena, he will find a way to miss the playoffs.
Shut up. All right? You're probably right, but just stop.
You do keep saying his last name differently.
I'm sorry.
It's on your update sheet, so I think you're just reading what you wrote. But yeah, you keep saying
Arozarena?
Well, you're not saying it that way in the update.
Well, how did I say it?
What's the other way you were saying it?
I didn't say Anya in the last two updates.
I don't know, man. It sounded a little different.
Oh, good Lord. I'm going to go listen to the tape.
Sprague and Line brought to you by dirt being tied up in Schultz's basement. Just saying, we all know how desperate he is to be a full-time host.
You're damn right, although I believe Dirt is on vacation, but I'm not above doing something like that.
Okay.
So
all right. Well, one, that's terrifying to hear you admit out loud, but two, a likely excuse you saying he's on vacation.
I mean, hey, you're
vacation in your basement, tied up, hiding in a Ninja Turtles tent.
You're taking vacation. It could mean a lot of different things.
Sprague and Line brought to you by Schultz's biological father, Dave Softy Mahler. It's clearly where he gets his rage from.
My God, that's awesome.
You do realize you got a little bit of that in you, right?
Yeah.
That softy kind of gene.
Oh, I rage hard on sports, and I am not ashamed of it.
Sprague and Line brought to you by public speaking lessons from Deshaun Foster. Still not as big a waste of money as a Sprague pick. Wow.
Dude did not show up prepared, that's for sure. Like, you write out a couple of paragraphs, right? I think
you just say, hey, UCLA, we're excited to be in the Big Ten. New venture for us, a new venture for me. We're looking to make a name for ourselves in this conference, and we're happy to be here. That said, bring on the questions. This really isn't hard. You could have been as simple and direct as that and moved right the hell on. Normally, don't come in with a whole lot of non-gambling news, but just for the show's sake, and we could talk about this, I guess, to wrap it up, Georgia had another player arrested.
Oh, good God.
Rodarius Thomas, a wide receiver, transferred in 2023. Not big impact-wise statistically, but still a piece of their receiver core. He was charged and booked on Friday with multiple family violence charges. He's currently being held in the Athens-Clarke County Jail, including cruelty to children, a second-degree felony, and 2 misdemeanor counts of battery, family violence. The second time he's been arrested, by the way. Georgia not having a great offseason.
No, and it sounds like this was an incident at his home with his family or with people that he knows, which you never want to hear about people like, doing violent stuff like at a club or punching somebody in the face, like getting to a fight out in public.
Yeah.
But this, like when you're at home and you're with the people that, like are supporting you and you are doing crimes towards them allegedly, no, that's very scary and awful.
Urban Meyer is trending, and people are noting, like, is this different than Urban at Florida? And I think it's very fair to be putting pressure. I'm not saying Kirby is responsible for all these individuals' behavior, but it's his program. Yeah. He's the highest paid person. He represents the university. It's a very bad look right now, what Georgia's got going on. And so, yeah, they're an amazing college football team, but I think it's time to turn the heat up. Like, Kirby Smart, great coach. Get your stuff in order. It's ridiculous.
I mean, are we surprised, though, that we're still in the world of college football where players that commit crimes are allowed to play on the field? And especially for the biggest programs. However, this guy's not really, as you said, much of a statistical
he's looked at this year to be a Ladd McConkey replacement. So this was a pretty big year for them.
Gotcha.
All right, let's Sprague the line. We'll get to a couple more sponsors as we wrap up, but I'll let you start. Do you got anything you are gambling on this week? And the Olympics are kicking off. They kick off in about an hour and a half. We've got baseball on the docket. Where is Schultz going for Sprague and Line this weekend?
I didn't get to see any of the Olympic lines or anything like that, but I've been looking at baseball leading up to the trade deadline. I feel like there's always things happening, and I usually like to take advantage when I see a team that, I think maybe is on a great run, taking that 1.5 run line for a win instead of just the money line, but trying to make some extra cash.
Okay.
And I see the Royals here right now. This is later tonight, 5:10 p.m. The Royals v. Cubs are at home and are minus 1.5 at plus 140. I do believe the Royals are going to win that game by 2 runs over the struggling Cubs right now. Bobby Witt Jr. has been hitting his face off.
Yeah.
So that's one pick for me.
Maybe take a Witt Jr. like prop bet of some sort over under on bases total or whatever.
Yeah. I love when you got I love the hits props, but I hate the total bases props because I forgot how total bases worked when I was betting those earlier in the season and forgot that, like, if you hit a single and then get to second, that's still only one base. Like, when you steal a base or move up, that's not a total base.
Right.
So that threw me off. So make sure you know what you're betting on.
Okay. I'm going to go with a little juice here, some carryover trade juice.
Ooh.
A Rosarena. I don't know when he's going to make his Seattle debut. I've yet to see that yet.
Okay.
I think the Mariners found this out and got super jacked. They're in Chicago. The White Sox are terrible. Kirby on the bump.
Mm-hmm.
I get M's under 2-1 value. I'm going to go M's who are minus 165 on the money line. And then the other one I'm going to go with in Major League Baseball. I'm done. My team sucks, and they're bad. And I hate the Mets, but the Mets are rolling. Morton's on the bump. He's having a good year. Not getting a lot of run support in his outings. I'm going to take the Mets on the money line, minus 135.
I'm going to throw one more random one in there. Somebody that could possibly be traded and is still kind of playing very well, but I'm assuming is also trying to up his stock for a crappy team, is Ryan McMahon of the Colorado Rockies. They are playing in San Francisco tonight. He is plus 650 to hit a home run. I'd throw $5-10 on that. I think that's a good positive return. And the chances of him being out of Colorado in 3 days, I think, are heavy. And he's probably just having fun trying to play and see where he can go. So I think he's hitting homer tonight.
I will play into the Olympics as well. I don't know how closely I will be watching the opening ceremonies, but I'll probably have it on my TV. Massive cleaning day in the Sprague house. The little one's camping with some friends, so she's out. So she can't make a disaster. You know, like when you have kids, you clean.
Yeah.
And as you clean in behind you, they're remaking the mess.
Oh, God.
So, like, the little one's gone. The oldest one is at a good age. Like, I'm getting home. I'm locking in. We're cleaning. It's cleaning day in the Sprague house, okay? Because I don't want to clean on Saturday. I don't want to do anything on Sunday. To get some stuff done. The Olympics will be on in the background. The opening ceremonies are always very patriotic feeling, and we got flag bearers, and I think it's Coco and LeBron.
Coco Gauff and LeBron James, yeah.
Snoop has the torch. He's probably lit a million joints with it already. Like, I'm all in on it being in the background. I will give you some gambling props here on the Olympics, okay?
Please do. I'm excited about this.
I don't trust Team USA with massive spreads, and so I'm going to take Serbia plus 12.5. I'm also going to take Nikola Jokic to be the leading scorer of that game at plus 190.
Okay.
I'm going to take France minus 9.5 against Brazil. And I'm going to take Greece. I'm betting Greece. They're getting 7.5 points. I'm taking Giannis. I think Greece can medal. I think the Greece team, they can get a bronze medal. So I think it's going to be Greece, France, and Serbia. Those are my men's basketball picks. If you want to get spicy, women's basketball, it is not caught up. I saw a graphic that said the dream team in the Olympics faced 9 NBA players from other countries. This men's team, just as a comp, they're well into the 60s of NBA talent. So that's the idea of what I've talked about. This game is not a layup anymore. It's not Larry Bird in the Memorial Coliseum against Angola or whoever the hell they played that day. This is a really tough thing to win. So I'm going to take the women, though. My point was the women have not caught up the way the men have. USA women should steamroll.
Just kill everybody, yeah.
They're minus 18 to 19 against Japan. I think they're going to bludgeon Japan. So.
I mean, the WNBA All-Stars beat them, but I don't believe that
you probably put that team against the world, too, and they would win.
Yeah, so, I don't believe that team is as talented.
It's the women have not quite caught up on the world stage in basketball the way that the men have. So there we go. Sprague and Line, let me get some of these, brought to you by Swag and Schultz. Pronouncing last names, the only thing is cringy as a Sprague pick. Wow.
Oh, why, thank you.
Spring Line brought to you by Georgia Football. They may not have unlimited NIL, but they clearly have unlimited bail money.
Ouch.
Yeah. It's
Well, like you said, I mean, he's planning on, or they were planning on him being a contributor this year. But if he wasn't a statistical contributor before, it's a lot easier for them to just kind of wash their hands and let him go.
Spring Line brought to you by the Seattle Mariners. When adding a 211 hitter with a 712 OPS is exciting because your offense is worse than Sprague's gambling.
Speaking of gambling, the Mariners World Series odds before the Arizarena acquisition, darn it, Arizarena plus 2,000. Now, after they acquired
You're
him,
still saying that weird.
plus 2,000.
Yeah,
so
that name's stuck in your head.
The World Series odds did not change, and I apparently can't pronounce his name ever. It's not going to happen for me.
Wrap it up. Why did we determine that this is a thing, and why is this team doing this to these fans? That's next. We wrap it up. Dirt and Sprague on the Fan. End of the weekend. Happy Friday, everybody. Been a fun show. A Rose Arena.
A Rosarena.
There you go.
A Rosarena. Not Arizona.
You
God,
kept doing
I
like an
suck.
Arizona thing there for a while. It's okay.
Sorry,
we got
y'all.
you. We'll see when he makes his debut.
I struggle with names, apparently.
Oh, dude, I mean, don't get me started. I give you a million stories on me. We already have our first positive doping test in Paris.
There we go.
Nothing more patriotic.
Was it from the Russian Federation or somebody else? Because they still can't even compete under their own country name. I believe they are the Russian Federation.
Which is like, still technically you're calling them Russia.
It's just, we're still allowing the athletes to compete. No, don't. Moving on.
A male judoka from Iraq tested positive for 2 anabolic steroids. Also, the Canadian women are cheaters. You see their soccer team?
Yeah, Bev Priestman, their coach.
Yeah.
What a freaking cheater.
Flying drones over practices, and Belichick would be proud.
I bet he probably called Bev and gave her a couple of tips. No, apparently New Zealand saw drones flying. The women's New Zealand team saw drones flying over their practice, had to go call the IOC's integrity unit and say, hey, the hell's going on?
Once every 4 years, baby. We got to get that medal. The opening ceremonies will kick off in a little over an hour from now. God, LeBron, I just saw he's got a polo suit on. Team USA polo suit.
Oh, yeah, their outfits they're walking in with.
Dapper. I could pull it off.
Amazing. Dapper for I hate the jacket. Everything else I like.
You hate the jacket?
But
I think that jacket's pretty badass.
The undergarments look pretty cool.
Oh, the striped shirt with a nice solid tie.
I love
good
those.
Too. Yeah. Opening ceremonies. We'll see how patriotic we all feel once this thing keeps going, and the games are on at early morning hours for us, which would be kind of cool during the show to have Olympic stuff on when we start. I saw this from one of our listeners, so I'm just going to believe it, at the Vancouver Ford text line. The Oakland A's evidently are charging like $100+ for upper deck tickets to their last home game. And I hope nobody goes. I hope that the final message for them in Oakland is F you, goodbye, not a soul in the building.
This is at the Coliseum.
Yes. Yeah, at the dump of a Coliseum before they go to Sacramento.
The farewell should be dollar tickets. They should literally just open up the stadium and let the fans that have put up with your S for so long in for free. What a crappy franchise that is. If I'm mad at my Mariners, man, gosh, I can't even imagine what it's like to be an A's fan.
Well, they do have World Series championships.
I mean, yeah, last one.
Current version, yes, to your point.
Yeah, last one was in 1990, 89, but sure.
You're going to have to explain this one. I guess a man a couple years back in 2017 had to have surgery to move a bone from his esophagus.
God.
He got that bone lodged because he ordered boneless wings from a local establishment.
Uh-oh.
Turns out not so boneless. Filed multiple suits against this. It was immediately dismissed, but eventually the appeals process worked its way up. The Ohio Supreme Court ruled yesterday that you can have bones in boneless wings, and people are very confused now. They said the term boneless does not guarantee that there won't be bone in your chicken wing.
Why don't words actually have meaning anymore?
I tend to be wondering the same thing here. I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, we're supposed to take our cues from the instructions, from the menus, from the things printed in front of us that we are taught to read. That makes no sense.
One of the dissenting judges or justices said when they read the word boneless, they think it means without bones, as do all sensible people.
Thank you. I would love to hear what the judge on the other side of that says. Not everybody. It's shut up.
He says it refers to a cooking style rather than a true guarantee is the technical defense of it.
So
if I order a boneless wing, which, I will from time to time, I think we need to stop shaming. If you want to call it chicken nugget, I don't care. Whatever. That's a different argument.
Call it whatever the hell you want. Yeah.
But sometimes they're convenient and delightful. But if I order a boneless wing, I am eating that in the assumption I don't have a bone to chew through there. So, there better not be one.
Yeah, the whole boneless.
Ohio, you're stupid.
That's the first time I've ever heard that it's referring to a cooking style as opposed to
your Supreme Court is
item.
stupid. What the? Anyways, so that's going on. It's going to be a full fun packed of Olympic sports.
Full of bones.
Full of bones. Bone in, bone out, whatever. Doesn't matter anymore, I guess. You did say that you were jacked for this. Is there any Like, what's off the beaten path sport for Jordan Schultz that he's excited about in the Olympics? Like, I kind of get this for track, and I know that's not like off the beaten path. That's a pretty popular sport in this event. But like, I get pretty hyped for track. It's just so sudden, so quick. The build-up for 4 years for these people. I know it's 3 because we had the 2021 one, but like the build-up for these people to have this one moment, and do they actually go out and succeed after all of that training, competing in their one moment that's like less than sometimes 10 seconds long?
Yeah.
What is it for you that gets you excited about the Olympics?
I mean, I love obviously the different random competitions. I'm a speed walking guy. I've always been fascinated.
Speed walking?
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by, I believe the rule is you always have to have one foot on the ground.
Okay.
And they're obviously like trying to not look like they're running, but they just look so funny doing basically, I don't know if it's like, like 10 miles or I don't know how long the track is, but speed walking for a long period of time, just looking odd. I mean, I love the water sports, any diving or any of the swimming stuff I'm always into.
The diving is fascinating because
Yeah.
I am terrified of heights. So watching these people do what they do from as high as they are is nuts to me.
No, and that takes, I mean, not just lots of training, but cojones, which I don't have. So props to all the men and women doing that. In the Winter Olympics, I love like the biathlon. It's like the shooting and the skiing at the same time, but obviously it's the Summer Olympics. But just any kind of obscure thing, not so obscure. I'm excited to watch beach volleyball. Who isn't? I know everybody's going to be watching gymnastics as well. Field hockey I get into during summer. So kind of a random sport, but the field hockey for the USA is pretty fun.
Somebody says, I've had a boneless wing that had a piece of bone in it. That's what happens when you buy processed meat. I mean, sure.
That's fair.
But the guy almost, I think he almost died. I think he had surgery. Like, it was lodged in his throat.
Yeah, there's a reason this went to the high Supreme Court.
Another one says, think of it from the other side. If you serve a boneless wing and there's a hidden bone deep inside, should you be liable from injury, or do you put it on the eater to not swallow the bone? Maybe chew your food first.
I mean, there is... If it's like a tiny
we're getting
fish
some other side. We're getting some defense of the Ohio Supreme Court decision here.
If it's a tiny fish bone, I get it, but you should be able to, like, it's a decent-sized bone. You should be hitting that with your teeth.
Someone else says, first of all, you're not eating a boneless wing. You're eating a GD chicken breast. Yeah, again, that's a different conversation. Fair. Yeah, I will acknowledge that, yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us, Schultz. Thanks for hopping in, hanging out, filling in, doing a lot of work for us the last couple days. It has been very appreciated.
Ditto, man. Appreciate you for having me in.
And thank you guys for hanging out with us. A lot of fun conversation. We talked to Sam Monson. You can find all of the show at 1080thefan.com. That's going to do it for us. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Everybody have a fun weekend, a safe weekend. Enjoy the Olympics. And, loaded day on the fan coming up next. This has been Dirt and Sprague on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan.